Perfect. All right, thank you, Dustin. Okay, welcome everyone. It's the State Building Code Council IBC Technical Advisory Group for December 2nd, 2024. And Dustin, you're doing great whenever you're ready.
All right. This little thing. All right. Chair Primary Todd Bayrether.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Alternate Roger Haringa.
Here.
Thank you. Architect Primary Joe Mayo.
Here.
Thank you. For the alternate, Che Fortaleza.
Here.
Thank you. For building official primary, Tim Woodard.
Here.
Thank you. For the alternate, Steve Belzak.
Present. Here.
And for fire services, primary, Lance Dahl.
Here.
Thank you. For cities and counties, primary, Hoyt Jeter. Not hearing him in the room today. And for affordable housing representative, primary, Todd Sullivan. Not seeing them with us today. General contractor or developer, primary, Bill Mybush. Not seeing them with us today. Manufacturer supplier, primary, Brian Horseman. Not seeing them with us today. Structural engineer, primary, Josh Mergens.
Present.
Thank you. Alternate, Trent Tinney.
Yeah, I'm present. But
Thank
just
you.
FYI, we'll have to probably leave a little bit before we finish today.
Heard. All right. For persons with disability or accessibility expert, primary, Michael Shaw.
Present.
Thank you. For building owner, property manager, primary, Brett Conway.
Present.
Thank you. For general public subject matter expert, primary, Michael Barth.
I'm here.
Thank you. For the alternate, Leah Summer. Not seeing them online today. For state enforcement agency, primary, Paul Clark.
Here, I'm gonna have to leave at 3 though.
Okay, thank you. And then the fire protection engineer, primary, Andy Leonto. Not seeing them online today.
You haven't called me yet.
Oh, wait, you weren't here when I called you out, so I hear you now. All right, with that, we have 9 seats represented, so we are good to go with business.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for what we hope to be our last big push this week. So we'll try to go fast today. Let's start though with any introductions that if anyone would like to be recognized from the public. Sorry, go ahead, Patrick. I said that and then look up.
No worries. This is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington. Thank you.
Great, welcome. Elizabeth.
Yeah, this is Elizabeth Torsky with Cascade Natural Gas. Thank you.
See Elizabeth. Corey.
Yeah, this is Corey Shaw with the Washington Aggregate and Concrete Association, and I just want to clarify that the agenda does show item number 26 is what we were interested in, but it looks like there's a separate agenda with the wrong date on it that I'm looking at now online. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at the same agendas.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
Yep.
Dustin, do you scroll down? Is that
So this is the one that's posted online.
Okay, great.
okay? Okay, thank you. Ariel.
Hi, yes, thanks. This is Ariel Brenner. I'm the proponent behind number 26, the embodied carbon submission. I wasn't sure if the plan was for this to be discussed today or at Thursday's meeting, so I've logged in. But if you're imagining that this will likely be pushed to Thursday, let me know and I'll drop off for today and rejoin on Thursday.
I think the answer could be either. The idea would be because there's a revision to at least try to get to it if we get to it, and then take action on Thursday. If that makes sense.
Great, thank you.
Matt.
I'm Matt Hink. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs for Cal Portland Company. We're a construction materials company here in Washington State and across the Western United States.
Thank you, Matt. Lucas.
Hi, Lucas Shattuck, City of Tacoma, proponent speaking on item number 14.
Okay, 14. Thank you. Sophie.
Hi, yeah, Sophie Marine with the American Wood Council, here to comment on item 26.
Thank you, Sophie. Okay. Anyone else? Not seeing any. We'll go to agenda item 2, review and approve the agenda. Let's start with a motion and a second. Can I hear a motion to approve, please?
I'll make a motion to approve, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
Second, this is Josh Martins.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, so there's a couple on here that have revisions that we'll do them in order. We'll talk about them, but then we'll need to take action on Thursday. To top of my head, that's item 5, the building separation going out of order. 26 is what we just discussed. And then what, the EV, was there an EV one?
So we have 4 EV proposals on the agenda today. 3 we've kind of been discussing at length, and we're coming back to revisit those ones within the IBC. There's one agenda item number 20, number 123 is within the International Existing Building Code. Kathleen Petrie and Ross Freeman are the proponents of this one, and they are looking to submit an updated life cycle cost analysis for this one, and we're asking for it to be heard at Thursday's meeting as well. And then as another one, number 133, which is the one that I've been trying to get a revision in on, I wasn't able to get that one done. And so I'm looking to get that tabled till Thursday as well.
Okay, I see you highlighted that one. Okay, Patrick.
Yeah, I have a question, not necessarily on the agenda, but just in general, mostly for Dustin. Is the intent to still have this? I think you've mentioned before of trying to have a council meeting on the 20th. So I just wanted to confirm if that's still the intent, to have all of the proposals ready for the council to vote on moving those for ahead along in the rulemaking process on the 20th.
So the answer is yes, that is the intent and the hope, but it'll largely depend on what happens at today's tag meeting. We have a fire tag meeting tomorrow, and then we have a follow-up meeting with this group on Thursday. The mechanical tag is not quite there as well. They have a couple proposals out, and it looks like they might be pushing out into next week with their final meeting. You know, our staff goal is to get things out within 5 days worth of review time for folks, especially at this juncture, going into the committee meetings. So I'm waiting to get closer to the end of this week to really say whether or not we're going to make that timeline or not.
Good, Patrick. Thank you. Okay, Roger.
Yeah, Todd, I was thinking a number of people are here to talk about item number 26, which is at the very end. I would wonder if we could suggest that those people call back in at about 3 o'clock or even 4 o'clock. We're scheduled from 1 to 5 today, I think. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
My guess is checking in at 3 o'clock and or 4 o'clock and seeing where we're at on the agenda might make sense.
Good idea. I like that, Roger. Okay, and then we'll at the top of those hours we'll be able to check in, see where we are, and briefly discuss it. Okay, I like that idea. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the item number 11, the ground snow loads, is kind of in that category of needs revisions, but we're hoping to talk about it so that we could take action on Thursday if we're talking any reordering, having 10 or 15 minutes on that one would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I think what we'll try to do then, if everyone's okay with it, we'll, try to limit that talk and keep things moving, but we're gonna have to move fast today, so let's just see how we do. Okay. Anything else on the agenda? We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as published. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Item 3 is any public comment for items not on the agenda. Would anyone like to address the tag? Or any questions? Okay, if not, then let's jump right in. So first item is agenda item 4, petition 114 revision 2.
Okay, moment.
And I thought I saw Eric, were you going to talk this one again? Am I confused?
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you want to?
I can
speak
talk
to
about it again, sure, yeah.
Or is nothing changed from the last time? I need a little help remembering where we left this one.
I'm not sure. I wasn't at the last meeting. There was a mechanical code tag meeting at the same time. I think, so I'm not sure if the building code tag has reviewed this since I revised it last. I'm not.
Okay, Dustin, can you help us all?
So I have a R2, which is what was linked, and in my cleanup over the weekend, I found a revision 3. I don't think that was posted to online. Looking through here, Eric, you're online. Maybe you could help me identify what the differences are between here and what kind of shook those out at a different meeting. I think this is resulting from our fire tag and maybe the correlations group meeting. I could be wrong.
Yeah, so when I went back and reviewed this further, yeah, the revision 3 is my latest draft of this. And let me see, I'm trying to recall, it's been a few weeks since I submitted that. So there was multiple inconsistencies in kind of how that list was created. Yeah, if we focus on the draft on the right, so again, we're talking about interior exit stairways pressurization. Oops, it just went away. Yeah, that's probably better to just focus on this one. So yeah, I'm recommending, the first change I'm recommending is adding pressurized as smoke-proof enclosures that we discussed to clarify that. And then this next sentence after that is calling out the legally required standby power requirements. And there was multiple section references that were incorrect when I went back and reviewed this sentence. And so I'm recommending the sentence is restructured as legal required standby power shall be provided in accordance with section 2702, a very general reference to the whole 2702 reference for buildings constructed in compliance with this section and connected to, and then recommend getting rid of that stairway shaft pressurization equipment and using the technical term smoke-proof enclosure ventilation equipment in accordance with 909.20.6.2. That's the very specific section that's required for the stairway pressurization or the smoke-proof enclosure ventilating equipment. And then the specific reference in 2702.2.17. And then elevators and lifts would be in accordance with sections 1009.4.1. So pulling in that specific reference that wasn't there before. And then 2702.2.2, elevator hoistway pressurization equipments in accordance with 909.21.5 and 2702.2.17. and other life safety equipment. So basically getting those very specific references to the sections. And if you scroll down, I clipped in all those sections from the 2021 code. So we can, cross-reference those specific sections. So for example, there's the elevator pressurization. You need the 909/21.5, and the accessible means of egress elevators are in that section and whatnot here. So I guess if we're trying to get all the section references right in that sentence, that's how it would need to be written. So that was what I discovered on the final round, looking through all the sections. So if you scroll back up to the code language, this sentence, the last sentence really hasn't changed. For the purpose of this section, legally required standby shall comply with NFPA 70. And then we had discussed what it looks like there, and then referring to the four general terms: the generator set, the stored energy power supply systems, the separate service, and the microgrid systems, using more generic language there when we refer to the NFPA 70 section. So it was really the big change that happened was in that middle section there, where to get all the section references correct. And in the last meeting where we reviewed this, we discovered that 909/11 section is not the appropriate section to be referencing for the smoke-proof enclosures.
Okay, go ahead, Hoyt. Thank you, Eric.
One thing I'm not familiar with, and I apologize, I was trying to do some research before this. What's a microgrid system?
Yeah, so let me pull open that PDF. So within NFPA 70, and I had provided in the PDF the NFPA 70 language. A microgrid system is a specific type of legally required standby power system. It includes on-site sources. So let's see. The designated stored energy legal required power system source of a microgrid system. Let's see, what does it consist of? Sorry. I'm not the expert on that, but it is an approved system. Let's see. Yeah, I guess it really doesn't describe exactly what is consisted of in that section.
Just telling you, that's one of the research I was trying to find. I got all the rest. I just don't know what that is. So maybe someone else on this call knows more about it. Can just at least give me some kind of a brief answer on it.
Tim?
Can't help there. However, I do recall Eric having that information showing how the NFPA modified the approved systems to now allow the microgrid systems. So that was my, I guess, solace in accepting that, was that it is allowed per NFPA now. So that helped me there. My comments were gonna, well, Eric, do you want to go ahead and explain what you're pulling up now? Sorry.
Yeah, so yeah, that matches my understanding that this, that this is an approved system in NFPA. And I'm trying to look 70. Oh, maybe it's in this other.
70/23.
Yeah, so that's their definition of what a microgrid system needs to consist of. So on-site sources, configured in that manner. So So it is a designated storage energy legally required system. And when you go back to E, you're looking at if you go back a page, the storage energy power supply system, has to have a fuel cell, storage battery, and other sources. So it's a combination of a stored energy power system and a microgrid system is my understanding.
Okay.
Not typically going to be provided for most projects out there, but maybe some military base or something like that. So
Can I add one thing?
Yes, please.
Sure, this is Richard Williams. And yeah, like the definition of it you just look it up. It's a local electrical grid with defined boundaries acting as a single and controllable entity. So I think it's also taking into account some green energy, potentially green energy sources, energy storage systems. I think is what Eric had said. But if that helps kind of define it a little more.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Tim, why don't you go ahead?
Dustin, if you want to pull up the legislation again. I just wanted to kind of say I appreciated Eric going through and making it read a lot better. You could tell this was an old code section that spanned probably many code cycles, because at some points they called an interior exit stairway an interior exit stairway. Some points they called it a shaft. Some points they called it different things. So I like the effort that we went through to call it what it is in the current code. And yeah, with those revisions and the additions of the reference code sections, it helps me to be on the same page and definitely be recommended approval moving forward. Thanks.
Good, thank you, Tim. Are there any other questions? Are we moving towards a motion? Eric, are you comfortable with that?
Make a motion, this is Hoyt.
Okay.
Motion to approve with this amendment.
Thank you, Hoyt.
This is Tim. I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Tim. So that's a motion and a second to recommend for full council approval of, let's call this revision 3. Is that correct?
Correct.
As shown. Any other discussion?
I just want to point out for those that may say that we didn't have this posted online for today's meeting, that the intent is to open this up for final discussion at Thursday's meeting. So this isn't the last time for this one. If somebody wants to review and make further comment, I just want to let everybody know we have that opportunity still.
Yeah, that's helpful, Dustin. Thank you. And please voice your concern if that's a good general good rule. Michael.
Do we need to include in the motion the note that we all understand that this supersedes the change that we approved in 038? I mean, it really doesn't matter much, but just to avoid any confusion. Remember last week in our discussion, we had accepted 038 because we had not yet gotten to 114.
Got it. Does that sound familiar to everyone? Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Code of correlation, when we code of correlation it or not. That's how I've always thought it was.
Okay.
But that's fine too, whatever.
Okay. Well, that seems appropriate, and if maybe we can have more information on Thursday. So if we move forward with this as shown as 114 revision 3, let's take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so with that, revision 3 of petition 114 is moved for recommendation for approval. And then Mike, that was 038 by memory?
Yes.
Check for correlation. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and there shouldn't be any conflict. It just the 114 had more information than 038.
Okay.
It
So
all
we'll
works.
double check. Thank you. Okay. Agenda item 5 is petition 089. We have revision 2 posted. This is one where there has been quite a bit of email correspondence over the weekend. And Joe and I did work on a third revision. This one likely needs to push till Thursday, but Joe, maybe I'll introduce a little bit of what has happened over the last few years. So there's this one, if you remember, is the horizontal separation for considering mass timber podium, right? Including the horizontal assembly. It started with what if 4A, and then seeking feedback and conversation to help shape it. This version right here before the weekend was keeping open what if 4A, 4B, and 4C. I think there was pretty strong opposition against the B and the C consideration. The one that Dustin, if you have the revision, I just want to point out the one we've been working on is 4A, and I'll just give my opinion. This is my subject matter expertise. This is all based on obviously the ad hoc Tallwood Building committee in 2015. We have the advantage of having at least one member that joins these meetings frequently. But the original fire testing on there, just going to be really short, was with the old standard requirements that allowed heat delaminating resins in the polyurethanes. Part of the outcome of the 2015 that led to the 2021 revisions in the code was also to change the standard to have a non-heat delaminating resin. In addition, there were just additional questions. We need as many data points as possible and still need more in fire. So there was additional testing in the last couple of years in Sweden called RISE. And so the changes that are part of the 2024 that we as state of Washington adopted in 2021 for type 4B, which is more exposure, unprotected areas, were the result primarily of that testing. This asks a further question to say, okay, going beyond that, what if we allow some of the mass timber typologies in the podiums of the lower building of what we call a horizontal separation of 510.2. So some of the changes here to consider when this gets posted and to talk about Thursday are, what if this was a good recommendation? Just make it its own separate section rather than putting a bunch of exceptions into type 510.2. And then I'll give the opinion that it takes a different approach, whereas the ad hoc committee, in my opinion, again, I'm going to keep saying that, looked at what if buildings were assuming we'd have all mass timber, and then we started using encapsulation at different levels to get to different heights, different areas, so forth. That's how we ended up with A, B, and C. Now, others might disagree with that kind of general statement. What we're seeing in the industry is type 1A buildings starting to use alternative materials, design, and methods to substitute what appropriate levels of mass timber are. So it's saying, instead of encapsulating areas that should not be exposed, or certain percentages, so forth, stick with non-combustible and start to say, for the areas that that are appropriate, that we start to substitute mass timber. That may not be everybody's motivation on this, but that's how I view this. And where this could land is, say, all right, if we're allowing 5A and 3A above, what if 4B, which is what developed out of the RISE, that starts to deal with unprotected and protected areas. 4C is completely unprotected. I think there is some concern in the industry that you have to really know what you're doing on reflective walls and so forth. So, and then 4A simply, isn't competitive. It kind of defeats the purpose of why we would consider mass timber to have 3 layers of sheetrock of type 5 X and so forth. So it's part of the advantage of considering this is that mass timber can be an automated process and introduce components and assemblies with fire resistant rating. But that is what the group would have to come to comfort with. So that was a lot. Sorry, I meant to be short. Joe, what did I miss?
I would just say that we, in the reasoning for the proposal, there is now there's more kind of justification, some explanation on the RISE testing, some links, including the RISE test fire test results. And it's a lengthy document, but I think if you just focus on tests 1, 2, 4, and 5, where there's all of them include exposed ceilings and beams, and then some tests also include exposed columns or exposed walls. Here we're explicitly eliminating or not allowing exposed mass timber walls. And then all of those tests, those 4 tests passed after a 4 hours after the initial burnout. The fire degraded rapidly with no regrowth. So I think they're great tests to look at and dig a little bit deeper into this proposal. And one of the other things we were talking about, which Todd touched on, was just the type 4A has not been a construction type that, to our knowledge, has been used anywhere yet. So it's not really a competitive construction type. And in the one case that I can think of where it has been used, there was a code alternate to allow exposed 3-hour mass timber floor ceiling assemblies and columns and beams. So very similar to what we're proposing right here.
Thank you, Joe. Roger.
Well, Joe, actually, I know that DCI has done one type 4A building in Oakland under the current code. So I believe it's 15 stories of mass timber. So your statement that it hasn't been done is not quite up to speed. So I'm trying to understand, Todd, so what's marked up there is different than what we have online, correct?
Correct. This would have to be considered for Thursday.
So what's showing is you have 4B as the podium, right? Of the same fire resistance rating required for building elements. So is that 3 hour? I don't know the result of item 2 there. So it's saying 4B type 1A probably is a 2-hour rating or a 3-hour rating.
3-hour at the assembly, column, primary frame, and then I guess technically it's 2-hour at the floor, right? Other floors.
So, and then above, you're saying that you are allowing basically stick frame or type 4 heavy timber, right? That's what's shown right now is type 4B below, and then 3A, 4HT, or 5A above.
Correct.
And the concern people had, so I don't know why we would get rid of 4A. 4A rated it would be a higher fire rating than 4B. I mean, particularly if it's designed for 3 hours or 4 hours, 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever the second part of the sentence there is. So all you're going to do is you're going to add Jitboard over the top of it, right? That's basically the difference. So I'm not sure why we would get rid of 4A if you're going to allow 4B in the podium. So yeah, that's my I guess question, and wanted some clarity. So, and then I'm curious, the section that is in bolded down there in number 6, was that just modified in the standby power? Didn't we just address that? So in the last proposal?
Yeah, that's from the last.
Okay.
And I don't know that we've talked much about it. I don't remember. So I think that should be a.
I would just say correlating if we just did what was the number 1, whatever the number was that we just passed. Is there a correlation so that the number, the description that you have in number 6 corresponds to that? So, but that's all my comments.
Okay. John, you're perfect to go next. Thanks.
Thank you. As Todd kind of mentioned, there was a group of us that met and sent some feedback to Todd and Joe late last or just before the weekend. And I think just to summarize real quickly, the group that met included City of Seattle, myself, and one other person. Let's see, I can't remember. There may have been one other person involved. Anyway, a couple other people. But we were really concerned about extending this to type 4B and 4C. It's good to see that 4C is off the table, but we really still have concerns about extending it to 4B. Understanding that some of the testing, and I will have to admit, I have not been able to have the chance to go through all the testing and things like that yet to read the RISE report in particular. Anyway, so I haven't had a chance to evaluate it all versus that. But we felt 4A was pretty clear that was going to be okay. Again, one of my concerns, I did send this to Todd, and we do need to talk about it at some stage, whether it's offline or here, is my concern that if you start doing this, then why not open it up to other types of construction, right? And right now it's totally limited to 1A. But if now you go 4B and say, well, all I have to do is meet the fire resistance rating. Okay, well, what if I want to do a type 2 building and just say, okay, I'm going to rate certain pieces 3 hours, or, let's go to, theoretically, you could go say, you would make the same argument for type 5A, because as long as I can meet the fire resistance rating, it doesn't matter, right? So that's my major concern about where this heads afterwards. This one, and again, 4A, we could probably live with. 4B, that gets, again, it's all that kind of exposed wood there. We would have a lot more concern that that's not, we're essentially making this equivalent to type 1A. It's saying that you can do the same thing in type 4B that you can do in type 1A with some slightly different limitations, but we don't feel that those were significant. So that I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you, John. I'll wait to respond to a couple of things there. Hoyt.
I'm actually, I don't see the rationale. Still, I don't agree. If I totally agree, I agree with John when he was talking about the allow 4B. I just don't see any justification to adjust this from the model code the way we have it. And I like to keep it like the model code until I've seen actual testing, or someone else has actually said that this is something that is more put on a national level. If this gets put forward, I'm going to actually vote against it right now, because I don't, just reading the justifications in here hasn't convinced me that we could build something that's less restrictive. Based on this, so it's less restrictive than what the code's required right now, without a valid reason or justification by testing that shows it's correct on a national level. So.
Okay, thank you, Hoyt. Couple of quick responses. Roger, 1A to or 4A to 4B, I think if this were developed into an acceptable proposal, there would have to be the discussion about why, when you move from non-combustible to a combustible material, what allows you to do that? Is it the area, is it egress, is it so forth, fire resistance rating, all of the above, right? So one of the reasons I think we took 4A off the table was it does have a larger area, and 4B is really what is the intent anyway. It's just the most aligned with actual testing and intent to go around to understand how much unprotected area is acceptable. And in short, that's why we went from 20% ceiling exposure to 40%, if I remember correctly, in type 4B to 100%, ceiling exposure. And there's a formula to also include some area walls. Now you'll notice in this proposal, taking walls off the table, because one of the current concerns in the testing was there were a lot of things that were really positive about the testing to better understand what happens at the ceiling, beam interface, ceiling wall interface, so forth. But there were, results in terms of the bottom of walls having higher acceleration than the tops of walls, and so simply taking that out for now and having to have someone demonstrate the alternative approach that would be appropriate is the thought here. That's just a couple, and I don't want to go on too long because again, shouldn't take action on this today, but I do want to get some discussion. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Sorry, I just want to kind of add, respond or whatever, add on to a little bit what Hoyt said earlier. At the national level, this was something similar, not exactly the same, was attempted. At the national level, this was in 2021, so it would have been it was a proposal for the 2024 code. The proposal was to put type 4A in the podium and then require all the protection, the hourly rating, to be done by basically chipboard. The committee, the ICC committee, basically said no. And one of the reasons, and whether you agree with this or not, one of the reasons they said was that essentially this horizontal separation is supposed to be like a firewall that's laid on its side. So you're separating buildings, right? So firewalls separate buildings, and this horizontal separation makes two separate buildings. Their argument, one of the arguments against the proposal, was that firewalls are not allowed to be combustible materials in these types of construction. So they didn't see a reason to allow it to go horizontal. That's, again, whether or not you agree with that line of argument, that's the reason why it got disapproved at the national level.
Yeah, thank you, John. Go ahead, Roger.
Well, I want to respond to John's. I mean, I think, where does this lead? Obviously, there's significant conversations here about making this proposal. So the idea of using a type 5 below would never get through this amount of rigor. And I would be supportive of this. Mass timber, while is it combustible? Yes, but we know with the charring layers and the fire ratings can be provided. A similar fire rating can be provided. The strength of the diaphragm can work. The egress is something that I would be curious from a fire perspective if that's similar, but the idea that we have to wait and test everything, like I know I have proposed mass timber firewalls, area separation walls, is just drop mass timber panels down, and haven't built it yet, but proposed it, and it actually it's a great solution if you have two wood frame buildings, that you're trying to separate as an area separation wall, is just dropping down a mass timber wall, and you don't have any issues with differential settlement or shrinkage, or significant less issues with shrinkage and differential settlement. You can provide the fire rating. It certainly would work as a separation better than a CMU wall or something like that running through a wood frame building. So I would be supportive of this. I think it makes, as we move forward, as products are developed, which mass timber certainly is a new product and it is being developed, and our code cycles are 3-year code cycles. And, this one makes a lot of sense to me, at least from a code perspective. I'm not convinced that from a cost perspective, it would make sense, but from a code perspective, I think that it makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Well, I think, go ahead, Tim.
Sorry, raising my hand at the last minute. I just,
Okay.
you know, I can't help but think about real world experience that I had in a similar circumstance of this, and it goes back to the 5B with meeting the hourly rating, and the layers of gypsum board with exposure to moisture and other things have shown to degrade over time. I'm not saying that that's the case with the mass timber itself, but definitely the protection per se. And I just can't get to the point necessarily where I can consider it equivalent to type 1A construction. And I have to rationalize all that with this is a very special section that allows you to go above and beyond what traditional code is. You know, you can build a standard building that's, say, 5B construction, and meet all the requirements. Granted, you can't drop the classification after the first or second story, but um, I I'm just having a hard time probably getting to that and would need more convincing that we're in a position that there wouldn't be any issues with maintenance or continuation of the assembly long term in a what's traditionally an open environment.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Shane, go ahead.
Yeah, Shane Ellis with the American Wood Council. I'm just primarily listening, but I wanted to chime in a little bit with regards to the talking about what occurred at the ICC level and that proposal and just to kind of share a little additional insight. I think something to just keep in mind is that proposal is not necessarily an exact alignment with, you know, what's being proposed here for your guys' consideration. And so the ICC proposal was more of a 1-for-1, which I think, you know, this originally appeared that way, where it was just trying to replace 1A with 4A and without any other types of considerations. And so I think that's important to just kind of recognize that what's being looked at now is, you know, with a little more forethought in trying to understand what other limitations might be necessary to make that change of the podium construction type more appropriate. So, and another thing is that the proposal at the ICC level, it effectively kind of died. But one of the reasons why, just some of the reasoning with that 3-hour requirement being purely non-combustible, that was added to that kind of made it cost prohibitive to where realistically that wasn't something that was going to produce a result. So part of the reason why it was, you know, yes, it was voted down by committee action, but it never even got brought back for public comment, for the public comment hearings by that proponent, who again was not, I mean, that was not an AWC proposal. But part of that reason was that at the end of the day, it probably is going to be cost prohibitive and wouldn't be utilized by industry anyways. And the last thing I wanted to kind of mention, because I did go watch that as well and saw some of the arguments made about firewalls and that, you know, that firewalls are not combustible, and that is also something that's you know, it's debated heavily, but technically is not even necessarily the case today, recognizing that the NFPA 221 is allowed by the 2024 code as a substitute for section 706. So you can build a firewall, you can just go directly to NFPA 221, build it per that standard instead. And the NFPA 221 has no limitations on material types for firewalls. So they're actually by code 2024 IBC, they're not required to be non-combustible if you take that path. So, but that's still heavily debated by people. Just kind of wanted to splash it out there that that's not, doesn't carry as much weight as it maybe did in the past. So.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Well, we better move on. I'll give Joe the last word here. Just in summary, though, this is essentially proposing mass timber floors and columns, no walls. It's recognized that most exterior walls and shear walls are not combustible. You still have to achieve the the two-part structural requirements, that would be an ASC 7. So it's really going to, in my opinion, probably push it to concrete shear walls anyway. But Joe, is there anything last? And then we probably should move on.
Yeah, I think just highlighting that it is different than the other code proposal with limiting it to 85 feet or lower for the entire building, podium plus building on top. And then maybe just a bit of reflection of this is for Washington State, where we are in a mass timber ecosystem and one of the most kind of advanced mass timber locations in North America. So it is in some way appropriate for this as a discussion, and that's part of the reason for bringing it up. And I really appreciate all the discussion. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Likewise, I'll publish my notes also with this third revision. Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll move on to the next. This will come back up at the agenda on Thursday. So moving on, agenda item 6 is petition 090. Says we're on revision 1. Is that correct, Joe? On e-occupancy? We just haven't taken action yet.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I've fished around a little bit to try and get some more any additional feedback on this one. Part of submitting this proposal was, as much a fact-finding mission as anything about why Group E was not part of the occupancy groups allowed above the horizontal assembly. And having worked on a few schools, it seemed like that could be, or it would have been for these two projects, something that we would have explored in more detail had it been allowed. And allowing for this could be something that makes more sites viable for schools, potentially could reduce construction costs for schools, which has been a constant thorn in the state side for years and years. So it just seemed like a way to open up some possibilities. And in my own opinion, I was struggling to see how it would be, I guess, any more of a concern than having Group R above the podium. And so I guess if someone else has additional information on this, and we spoke last, would be great to hear.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, the one thing with Group E and all Group E occupancies, you have younger kids in classrooms and stuff like that. And building a larger structure like you're doing that above a horizontal separation. I'm another one not comfortable having school systems for egressing, for horizontal exits, for egressing through buildings, allowing that for higher structures, having a lesser rated assembly just because you have a podium building and then building the E above it. I just, besides the answer that says there that it would just make it for more buildings to be able to build with that with a Group E, I think that's a total different. I think Group R occupancies, you are familiar with the structure, you live there, a little more older people are there. When I say older, people that are not, in sixth grade, fifth grade, all those other E occupancies. M is mercantile, S is storage, not a highly occupiable. B, those are office buildings and things like that. I don't see a justification by throwing these higher structures in Group B with this horizontal building separation. I think you should stay with what the standard code states right now. That's my opinion on that. Besides the argument of it'd be nice to be able to build E's with the same type of construction.
Wait, I got a little confused there. Just to make sure there's clear separation from the last proposal, right?
Yeah, the only
that
reason
was only R. This is an isolated proposal just for the occupancy, right?
Yeah. Okay. That's what it's horizontal building. Basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're putting an E. You can have the M, the R's, the S, A, and B. what I'm saying for educational occupancies under 12th grade, you know, building these higher structures, I still don't believe this is should be allowed per code. And I don't see a reason why specifically for our state, we should do separate what the rest of the industry around the country does. So the rationale behind theirs doesn't make sense. And there's a lot for the egressing and those other things, requirements. I think you'd have problems with egressing with younger kids.
Okay. Thank you. John.
Yeah, just building a little bit of what Hoyt was saying. This would allow you to put a type 5 building on top of the podium, which I assume is the intent here. Right now, a type 5 building would be limited to 2 stories, even if you're fully sprinklered, which we require in Washington State. So that all your E's are sprinklered, as I recall. This would then put them up in the 3rd story, because you'd have 1 story of a podium, and then you would have 2 stories of 5 on top of that. And the concern is, again, you know, a lot of the, well, as I understand it anyway, part of the reason for the limitation on number of stories here is about egress. You know, you got little kids, smaller kids, younger kids, whatever, having to egress out of these buildings. And unless you were to put some kind of limitation on which stories you put which kids on, which starts then getting a little more complicated, I think you're going to start running into potential egress issues. I do remember there used to be some requirement you didn't, and I don't know if it's still in there because I haven't looked at it recently, but you weren't allowed to put kids under a certain age on upper stories. So that would be a little bit of a concern with this one. Again, you're just increasing the number of stories that the kids have to egress.
Yep. And I did look at, well, for the really young kids and preschool, the group E would require exit, the classrooms opening up directly to the level of discharge. So there wouldn't be the possibility for infants, toddlers, preschool in this. But I do hear the concern about perhaps elementary school or younger elementary school. I mean, it's interesting hearing the conversation because where Group R or Group A could have, you know, quite a few younger children in those occupancy groups as well, and would be egressing out. And one of the there's a code discussion about Group A above the horizontal assembly, that a video was shared around, and the discussion sounded like to me was that the building above the podium is, you know, designed for its level of safety, and then, you know, the 3-hour building below is for these occupancy types almost irrelevant as long as the building above meets the required or meets the requirements for its construction type. So anyways, I hear the concern.
Okay. Josh, you're first.
Yeah, just really quick, when we're talking about E versus R or A, and with respect to kids, I think one thing to consider is in a Group A or a Group R, you are going to have a much lower ratio of guardians to children, whereas in a school setting, you're going to have much more children per, you know, adult having authority over them. So I think there's a pretty big difference in egressing a residence where maybe you have 3, 4, 5, 6 kids, depending on the family, with, you know, 1 or 2 adults, versus you have an adult to 30 to 50 children, perhaps.
Yeah, thank you. Tim.
Yeah, I shared with Joe kind of the code change proposal that was submitted a few cycles ago to take out Group A limited to 300 occupants. And the code proposal stipulated that this was a provision from the UBC that had been longstanding, and that Group A's have changed over time, and so it didn't match up, and that's why they were able to rationalize omitting the limited to 3. But even the original code changes that allowed this always stipulated that no e-occupancies could be utilized within the above podium building. So it just kind of confirms that there was intention behind leading them out originally. And although I don't fully understand what all that was, and we've talked about some possible ideas, I still feel uncomfortable removing it without kind of some more thought into the intentionality behind why they have always included e-occupancies. Thanks.
Okay. You, Tim, Micah?
Thanks, Todd. A lot of concerns from this proposal from a lot of different folks. I think one additional item that should be mentioned is we're talking about putting a higher risk category structure on possibly a lower risk category structure. Yes, 1604.5 does talk about multiple occupancies, but in this instance, I'm not sure it's clear if that's going to make a cost savings or not. If your podium then, based on whatever, has to be a higher risk category than an E, or the same risk category as an E, you may not be getting the cost benefit that you're looking for from this proposal. Again, there's a lot of other concerns, but that's an additional one is putting a higher risk category on possibly a lower risk category structure. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, what would Tag like to do on this one?
I'd like to make a motion. This is Hoyt, for not a recommendation, not approve this recommendation to move forward. And the reason why, based on the discussion that was discussed, putting educational facilities and higher level, which could impede the egressing requirements for younger kids. So.
Okay, so Hoyt, what I heard was we'll jump straight to a motion to deny. Before we do that, this one's so straightforward, I assume there's no amendment that would potentially bring it to a recommendation. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think you'd have to strike the E, maybe.
That would do it.
I could make a, it sounds like it's not gonna pass, so I don't know if I could just say I remove or withdraw my code proposal here.
There could be an option, Joe, right? You could either withdraw or there could be a vote to deny and then
yeah, I've heard the arguments here and they're persuasive, so
okay.
Either we can vote or I can withdraw it.
Okay, Tim has his hand up here. Tim.
I just wanted to say, I think there is a possibility of a more comprehensive change to this. I think your intention is to allow a change in construction type, right? So if we could get beyond the concerns of, say that if it was built per the construction types allowed and limited to those heights versus allowing this, but it would allow you the different construction type above this podium. I think there's a possibility of something, but it would be a much more comprehensive, requiring changes to multiple sections in the code to kind of get to a point where you're still justifying all the egress concerns, but allowing yourself to modify the type of construction after the, say, first or second story. So with that, I'll second or let Joe withdraw.
Thanks, Tim. I would appreciate, I don't know if you have a free time, want to send over some notes. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, a little bit more to think about it, but yeah, no need to further this one, I don't think, at this time.
Okay, so Joe, which would you prefer, to withdraw it or to?
I'll withdraw it, yeah.
Okay, Dustin, thank you, Joe. Is that appropriate, Dustin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so then we'll just, instead of voting on the denial, then we'll consider petition 090 withdrawn by the proponent. Okay, thank you for that, Joe, and thank you, everyone. Agenda item 7 is petition 115. We left this one from last week?
I believe so. Let me,
Or was that further back?
it might be further back. I designed today's agenda to hit ones we haven't gone through very well. I try to put the ones that we're gonna have long conversation towards the end after ones we hadn't done already, and then try to organize them so that they flow through the text from
Yeah.
beginning to end as well. So looking at our last meeting, let me get to it real quick.
Does anyone remember? I thought maybe I'm just not remembering taking action on it. I mean, definitely remember.
Todd, this is Eric. I can give a recap of what I know.
Okay, thank you, Eric. That'd be great.
So a couple meetings ago at the building code tag, this was referred to the mechanical code tag. The mechanical code tag did review the language and moved it back to the building code tag without any recommended changes. I guess we'd have to look at the minutes. I can't remember the exact motion that was made, but that there was no changes made, and they deferred final approval to the building code tag because it's under that committee
Yep.
in the at the ICC level. They did recommend including the same language in the mechanical code and the building code because they are duplicated sections in both codes. This was also discussed at the correlation committee meeting last week, which I wasn't present, but I heard from Ben Omura that there was potential comments on this proposal or discussion on this proposal from the fire code tag. And so I'm not sure what this tag wants to do with it now, if it wants to defer it to the fire code tag to comment on these items. But that's the recap of what I know to date on this proposal.
To expand on that a little bit, at the correlation meeting, we discussed it. There was talk about sending it over to the fire tag for comments since we're talking about dampers in this one. And there were some members of the fire tag present that spoke up, said that they were okay with the language as drafted there. And so there was no direct, no motions were made because we're not having quorums there. But we didn't make any decisions to take this specifically to the fire tag for a specific review.
Okay.
I do remember that also. Okay, so I guess the question then, is this the full proposal? We're at the bottom, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So does this sound familiar? I do remember this now. I guess the discussion could also be, do we feel the need to refer this to the fire code tag? But I do remember the correlation having that discussion.
Yeah, just remembering from this point, it's still going to go through public review and all sorts of other steps. So this is just the first step in the process. So
Yeah, from my recollection also from the fire code tag was I didn't think anybody needed to see it again. That if we found anything down the road or somebody came up with something down the road, we could comment on it at the next step.
Okay, Tim?
Yeah, having heard the arguments at the national level on this, it seems like everybody's having the same issue. And I would hate for us to go through another code cycle where we don't get anything in here. I think this is in some ways a more complete proposal than the national proposal as far as giving more specific direction. And Eric could correct me, maybe it's the exact same, but to me it seemed like it was more poignant. With that said, I'm very much in support of moving this forward. And then if there's further public comment to revise, then we can take that as it comes. Or
Okay.
the whole council can.
Okay. Russell?
It's Chris Russell with Security Solutions Northwest. So my concern with this is, since the static dampers, looking at doing a little bit of research in the ICC commentary, they're meant to limit radiative heat transfer, not smoke. So this is adding a bunch of early detection to activate these dampers. And I'm wondering if you could add an enumerated option of at least a water flow switch activation, so that at least in sprinkler buildings, we could just add a relay to shut it down and wouldn't have to add additional detection that's going to add cost and both the install and ongoing maintenance.
Eric, or any other can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, these are four distinct options. We could add a fifth option for water flow detection from a fire sprinkler system. I could draft that for the next meeting if that's what we want to do.
Okay. See, Win first.
Yeah, so this is Quinn. I'm part of the fire tag, and we did talk about this, and I was in support of it, but I would be remiss to not mention that there was someone in the tag that raised a concern about the downstream effect of if you shut this down, it may shut down an area where air would be required. Dustin, do you remember that?
I do remember that particular line of talk occurring at the correlation meeting. Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, thank you, Win. Chris?
I can probably speak a little bit from a fire official's perspective on the difference between smoke detection activation and fire sprinkler activation. Fire sprinkler activation would be delayed considerably depending on the event. The reason why we require smoke activation on dampers and things is we're trying to mitigate smoke migration through the building. And yes, where there is smoke, there is fire. It is just that it is significantly delayed if you were to include something like fire sprinkler activation as an alternative. So I would be aware of that if that was something to be considered.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Hoyt?
Yeah, this is Hoyt Jeter. I always have a problem when, like item number 5, when other automatic control means approved by the code official. That's already in the code. I'm hearing an echo coming back, but that's already in the code that the code official can approve alternate means and methods or something like that. It's always one of those things that I think it should be more, should you put that everywhere or not? I don't think it's really necessary to have item 5 in there, since it's already an option in the code anyway. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, guess we could propose to strike that if you'd like. Do you want to hear from Russell? Is that your last name? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's Chris Russell, either
Chris.
one. Sorry, I don't know how to fix my name on. Well, to address the smoke damper issue, I mean, there are rules in the subsection that follows this, that if it's a smoke damper, there has to be some form of duct or area detection. And then the static damper, if it's just a fire damper or the ceiling radiation damper, then it would fall under the fire damper activation, which typically is like a solder link. And this is concerned about shutting down the HVAC system that's connected to that, which I don't see why that couldn't be done with water flow switch, since basically, sprinklers are a heat detector.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or discussion on this? Hoyt, were there any changes, or did you want to propose to strike that?
I mean, I want other people's opinion too, if they think it's important to have item 5 for this specific one. You know, to be honest, that's already in the code, so I've always, I just, you know, you could always approve something by alternate methods and materials approved by the code official. I'm not sure I'm 100% in support of this even, but if it was going to get approved, I would like to strike out item 5 if the proponent's fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with striking 5.
Okay, how about any opposition to it?
I guess the only thing item 5 that clarifies it has to be some sort of automatic control means, you know. So it is kind of a clarification. It's not any means, it has to be automatic means. So.
But it already says that up there in the main striking sets there, automatic shutdown event of fire. So if it are, that's how I read it. I mean, there's other building officials on here. I would not allow an automatic one to be approved as an alternate methods and materials. If it came to me, if it wasn't automatic, but maybe someone else has a different opinion on that. So.
No, I'm in agreement. It can be stricken.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, while I agree with Hoyt on this, the only just for discussion's sake, number 5 though actually gives, like Mr. Russell, you know, some direction or a path to use that as a, you know, a means that could be approved, because if the circumstance really did warrant it and they made that argument to the code official, then you know, that number 5 there gives just yes, it's you know, elsewhere in the code and for code officials, but you know, if this is like fire protection engineers, they may not be, you know, fully versed in the rest of the code and the minutia like that and the details. This gives them an obvious means to address that. So in that regard, I don't think 5 is a bad thing here.
Okay.
The only reason the reason I bring that up is because people will argue in other places when they read these things and they say, well, it just doesn't make the code consistent. And, you know, just because a person doesn't know the code, I mean, hopefully they're talking to the fire marshal and the other people that are in there. I don't think that's a reason to keep that in the code, personally. So unless there was something specific that, you know, because then if we start doing this, you might as well put that in everywhere throughout the code, unless approved by the code official. And so many other areas of the code, you could do that. And I just don't like that precedence to have something that we're going to adopt by our state that doesn't make any logical sense. So, you know. So what does the proponent want to do? I mean, they're here. Maybe they could decide what they want to do on their proposal.
Yeah, I'm good with removing item 5. Thank you. This is Eric Van der Meijden, proponent. Yeah.
When?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if I should even be talking since I'm not on the IBC tag, but just for discussion purposes, so I'll introduce myself. Quintai, I'm with the city of Tacoma here. I am always concerned with maintenance of the code, and so for discussion purposes, should we even mention section? So like International Mechanical Code section 606.4.1, can we just say in compliance with the IFC and IMC? Because we know sections can potentially change, and so for us to look at it every single code cycle, you know, I mean, it's just a maintenance question.
Yeah, I mean, those sections were written similar to other sections in section 606.3, so there are specific references to those sections in the other sections. So I was trying to model that language in how I wrote this.
Okay, thank you, John.
You probably want to add UL 268A to chapter 35.
Okay, good catch.
Are you deleting 5 or not?
Well, I was kind of waiting to see if there's an official, it seems like we're still talking about it. The proponent's okay. We've got a member of our group who is in favor of it, but I haven't heard anything official transpire to remove that.
How about we don't have a motion on the table. Anyone opposed to that? Sounds like Hoyt and the proponent are in favor. Okay. Let's strike it then. Okay. That's a strikeout, but okay.
Then I want to.
We had a point with. Go ahead.
The other comment that was there, so I didn't talk on 2 different things. So I like to stay on one topic. On this one, this is one because there is some life safety in the fire code. I kind of do like the references to the other code, like they have it. And that is important for us to code in correlation to make sure it's correct. I agree with Quinn that sometimes gets missed and it probably shouldn't be mixed, but it should actually get you in the right direction for this as a life safety issue for this system. So in this specific one, I'm going to ask the proponent, because I haven't dug into it enough. Does the 606.4.1, unless you can open up the mechanical code, and I apologize, I don't have that available to me right now. Does it specifically deal with these areas for the area smoke detection and give the requirements properly? But I do think code and correlation, we should be able to catch that. So that's my 2 cents. Maybe the proponent can tell me if he's definitely looked at the newer code that this is referencing to, or we could highlight it and just say double check it in our code correlation thing, just so we don't miss it.
I'm opening the 2024 version to check it right now. Just so 606.4.1 is the supervision section for duct smoke detectors. So yeah, that's the correct reference. As referenced by other 606 sections of the mechanical code in regards to smoke detection for shutdown of HVAC equipment. And then 606.3 is the section for smoke detectors, how they have to be installed, duct smoke detectors installed in accordance with NFPA 72. So that's another section that's referenced in 606. And I guess if folks wanted to make it more general, you could just say mechanical code section 606 to leave it more general, but it's probably better to have the very specific references, is my opinion. So
Okay, thanks for checking that, Tim.
I'm very comfortable with the way that it's presented now on the screen. So I would like to make a motion that we recommend approval to full council.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
This is Mike. I'll second that.
Thank you, Mike, for the second. Okay, any other discussion?
I would just throw out there that, again, this is changing at the national level, but this would be a change to the 2027 code. And I think that's going to help us with any correlation in the future or anything else. Likely, this may be a modification that next code cycle, the tag is deciding whether or not to just stick with the base code language or any of the differences here. But this gives us direction and not have to wait another, 3, 4, or 5 years, whatever it ends up being. So thanks.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Okay, with that, petition 115, we'll call this revision 2, as shown on the screen, is recommended for approval by the full council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, 115 is recommended for approval. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
let's keep going here. We're at hour and a half. Agenda item 8 is 074. I was thinking let's try to go a little bit further here and then take a quick break before others join us back at 3 o'clock for a touch base.
All right, here's 074. What was this one? This one is David Mao. And this one is Dave here today. Nope. This one came back from the correlation committee as well. Let me get to my notes on that. So it looks like at the November 19th correlation meeting, this one was reviewed. And the work group was okay with the proposal language and did not have any suggested revisions to this one. So this one was heard by this group. Let me pull that note up. So we did, I believe, hear this one once before sending that out to the correlation group.
Okay.
It looks
sorry,
like
Dustin, did you say you're pulling up?
Yeah, I was just looking to see. We first discussed this one October 24th and deferred it to the correlation meeting just to see if there's anything else to come out of it. So correlation group reviewed it on the 19th and didn't make any changes, and so we're back here with no modifications to what we've seen in the past on this one.
Okay. So with that, we'll entertain any questions or a motion.
I make a motion to approve this and move it on to the full committee.
Okay,
I
thank
have
you, Mike.
I second that, Lance.
Thank you, Lance. Any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded that petition 074 be recommended for full approval by the council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with that, 074 is recommended for approval. Agenda item 9 is petition 071. And it says revision 1.
Believe we came out with a revision on this one at the correlation group. Give me one moment here. Yeah, so at the correlation group on the 19th, they reviewed revision 1 and revision 2 came out. And so let me see what we got going on. I'm not sure what the differences are on that. Let me open up 071, the original, and this one's a Ken Brulette proposal. I believe there's someone here who wants to speak on this one as well, but I've got Hoyt with his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Hoyt.
This is just real quick. One of the things is 915.1. It says new and existing buildings shall be provided. Is this also in the existing building code?
That I do not know.
Because usually I thought this, unless I'm in the wrong section, I could be in the wrong section. Am I in the fire? Oh, I'm in the IFC. Never mind. I wonder.
Yeah.
That's probably why. Never mind. I'm sorry. I was in the wrong one. Forget what I was saying. If the IFC, if the fire code's written that way, then that's fine. it should be in the existing building code too then.
So in this section below here, we got a bunch of strikeout for the existing stuff in both the IFC and IBC. In the 20, then we're in this section, we're looking at IFC only. And here's the stuff for the building code. Some definitions changes, and then some more strikeout in 915. And I believe these are pretty much the same as what's in the fire code there.
Yeah, the only thing is when I look at 915.1, where it says new and existing buildings, all I'm concerned about, if you're in the IEBC, will you still get here? If the fire code's catching it, then that's fine. But typically, in my experience, we have is a lot of times they use the full existing building code, and sometimes they're able to not get to this section. And maybe someone else knows top of their head. That was something I didn't get to review this one. I apologize. I didn't have time. But as long as you're definitely going to get to this somehow, then that's fine. And it's in parentheses fire, so it's probably just through the fire in the fire code. But does anyone else know on this call that if you're going to get that for sure too in existing buildings?
Go ahead, Tim.
Dustin, do you mind scrolling up to the strikeout for the IBC for 915.1?
Yes.
And then what that's replaced with in the IBC, not the IFC.
This one here.
So there is that change that Hoyt is mentioning. The original code is for new buildings. I don't see really a problem with the language. I'd just say that, the pointer from the existing building code will usually point you here when you have to be in compliance with the IBC for life safety systems. So you would go here and then it would have this new and existing buildings. But this wouldn't be the charging language ever to get you from the EBC to the IBC. So I don't think there should be a correlation problem.
And that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to ask that question because I actually did not review this one. I apologize. So I'm doing this on the fly.
John?
Yeah, somewhat related to what Hoyt and Tim were talking about. Does anyone else read this as being a retroactive provision? Because I think relevant to what they're saying, the IEBC has triggers. When do you trigger new work, other work, and things like that? The way this is written, and the reason I think the original language referred to Chapter 11 of the IFC, because that's the retroactive provisions. So if you have a building and you want something retroactive, you throw it in the IFC anyway. It shows up in Chapter 11. This here appears to make it look like, or appears to make it the building official does a retroactive requirement here. So anytime it comes to them, you force the work. So that's kind of the way I read it. But again, like others, they may read it differently.
Okay. Micah?
I read it the same way, John, as a retroactive. I'm not even seeing, and again, this is a really quick review, the IEBC. I'm not even see like under level 3 alteration that it triggers to this section either. So I agree with you. That's a retroactive item and that should be changed. The other thing I had, and again, I'm really short notice look on this one as well. The other thing I had a concern with is under the definition, Dustin, if you wouldn't mind scrolling up to that, it talks about the product of the carbon monoxide source definition, product of combustion under normal or abnormal conditions. Would there be any other conditions besides those two? Wouldn't it just be a product of combustion? Again, that just seems like a strange add to a definition that, what does that mean? my recommendation, I would think you could strike the under normal, abnormal conditions from the definition, you still get the definition accurate. But again, this isn't my proposal. Ken's not here for me to ask him. I can probably send him a message though. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Thank you, Micah.
Yeah, I'm having some of the same concerns, and I'm not exactly sure why they struck everything and then redid it. Makes the kind of review of the entire package a little difficult. And it's like I don't know what I'm missing here, but I feel like, you know, something is, and that, you know, maybe that's just me in the way I write or read this, but I'm also seeing things like, well, you know, Micah brought up the normal and abnormal conditions. You know, we need carbon monoxide detection, not just when there's sources and fixtures and gas appliances, but when somebody drags their charcoal grill into their house to to, you know, add some heat. It's and again, I apologize because I haven't spent the time necessary either to really review this side by side, but just I think there are some concerns there.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Sounds like do we potentially want to table this one and see if we can get Ken back at some point, Tim?
That's totally fine, and I'd be happy to make that motion. But if we could scroll down to the justification statement, if I remember correctly from our correlation meeting, this was something that's proposed at the national level that Ken's trying to get in early. And if I remember correctly, it did pass and there was no modifications or comments made. And so it went to the consent agenda essentially for public action hearing 2. So I think that's where a lot of that's coming from.
And if I do remember correctly, I remember Ken presenting this right at the correlation meeting, but whatever
that's correct.
tag would recommend for this. Go ahead, John.
Sorry, one more additional question for Ken when he comes back, when you guys discuss this again, is if you look at 915.2.2 in the building code side, there's exception 2. This essentially says it's a something that the fire code official decides, not the building code official, which then who's got the authority to, you know, should this just be in the fire code or something? I don't know. That it just seems weird to say that, you know, the fire code, you have to go to ask the fire code official what do they decide on this particular issue.
I agree. That does seem strange, John, especially when you look at the hierarchy of the codes and except for safety or the more strict, the fire code official usually has the last word.
Okay. Wait.
Yeah, I could just be remembering wrong. Can you scroll down a little bit farther in 4.2.3? Did the occupant load change from 30 to 50? Am I just missing that? Or right here? What was his? I didn't see his rationale from going. I don't remember. I apologize. The same thing. Holiday times, they had a hard time. I'm trying to figure out if that actually was a change in the national code. I just don't remember. I don't know why I wouldn't just stay at 30. So
this is to correlate it to the Washington State provisions that currently exist as a modification. So this was basically the only change I believe Ken made from the national model was to correlate it with Washington State's.
Correct. It was to coordinate with WAC.
Yeah.
the WAC, I thought the WAC was going to change back to 30, but I could be remembering wrong. Okay, if it's staying at 50, then that's fine.
Okay. So do we want the Ken pathway here?
I'd make a motion to table this and see if we can get Ken to speak to it more at the next or at a future meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Second.
Is that Lance?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So moving to second at the table. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so then this is 071 table for Ken feedback. Do we want to try to start one more here? Or does anyone want to break?
I'm okay for one more.
Okay, so we're on, that was 071, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we're on agenda item 10, which is 124 revision 1. See if we can clear the side of the page.
This is a Joe Mayo proposal for conditioned space.
Oh, geez. I apologize, everyone. I was not prepared for this one. How do we?
Can we help out at all here, Joe?
Yeah.
This one, I might be able to clear it up a little bit. So we talked about this at the correlation meeting on the 25th, as far as whether or not we should be citing the Washington
Yes,
State
yes.
Energy Code or Washington custom codes across all the different codes. Not so much at the correlation group for this particular code section, but just in general where we should be doing that. So the discussion was, you know, kind of ended up that we have the preface sections in the beginnings of our code books that are copied from the first couple WAC sections of each different code. And in there, it names specifically the codes, and the only code that we have specifically named a Washington code is the State Energy Code. And so I think the consensus at the correlation group was to leave this stuff in the preface section so that we don't have the code maintenance issue that arises if we have this all across the code. There was talk of putting it in chapter 1, which is one of the sections that is free reign to be amended by local jurisdictions without approval from the SPCC. Not that they would name a different code and try to enforce a model code or something like that, but there's being some issues there. And then the other place we talked about putting this was in the reference standards section. At the end of the day, I believe the correlation group was of a mind to leave this in the preface sections, but I do have a note here to discuss with Dirk if there's a more appropriate verbiage to use when we're naming specific codes as identified by our WACs. So I think if we're making the movement to bring this in, keep it in the preface section, that this proposal is not a needed one. This is one that we kind of identified as maybe a section we can do as part of the tag group. And so there's no real need for this one here if we're going to leave all the code naming in the preface groups.
I that so.
Wait, I don't think I didn't catch what you said.
Oh, I agree with what he was talking about. Keep it in the prefix so we don't have to. It'd be really difficult to go through the whole code and change it everywhere. So.
Okay, Roger.
Yeah, Dustin, that's what I remember from the correlation meeting as well. Which code proposed change was discussed? I mean, theoretically, there should be one code change proposal that moves forward that clarifies all of the, clarifies that in the preface.
So
And then any other of these could be denied, right?
Right. So here in what we see here, we do have the 3 options for where this could be included. So we have the option 1 in chapter 1, option 2 in the reference standards, and option 3, which would be the status quo, which wouldn't require us to actually do anything. So if the will of the council and the tags and everything is to keep it in the preface sections, the proposal is not needed, and we can withdraw the proposal, and the option 3 will be what occurs as a matter of course. without any changes needing to be made. So if we were looking for movement on this one, it would be a motion to deny adoption of this into option 1, or we can just withdraw the proposal if that's okay by Joe.
I just think, at that meeting, let's hear back from Dirk, what's the best way? And if that is to, put it in chapter 1, I do want to make sure that we still have a proposal open that would make the change in chapter 1. So I would suggest maybe that we postpone this one too, and we hear back from Dirk. I mean, it is one issue, and I think that there may be, I don't know, 1 or 2. Again, I don't remember which code change proposal was talked about. I don't think it was this one at the correlation committee. I think it was another one that came up somewhere else. I could be wrong, but.
Okay. Micah?
Thanks. I kind of struggle with option 3 here and how that's relevant. It seems like the relevant WAC would be 5104-015 that talks about definitions, including the definition of model codes and state building codes. And it is specific to, the state building code means adopted by and referenced in chapter 19.27, the state energy code, and any other code so designated by the Washington State Legislature as adopted and amended by the council. So again, if option 3 is relevant, then I think we should have an option 4, which references RCW 51-04-015. Thanks.
Just on that one, since we're working on the building codes and not the 5104, I'd need to double check with Dirk to see if that one's something we have to do anything special on to open it up. So we can keep this one open. I can get the conversation going with Dirk on this one, and maybe we can provide an option 4. I think that this particular proposal is taking on a little bit of a different life since it was first drafted to be intended only for the building code, whereas now we're looking at all codes and how we're naming them across there. So if we want to table it till this Thursday, I can have the conversation with Dirk on naming of the codes and where it's best appropriate, and then also follow up with him to see if there's anything special we need to do to open up 5104 for rulemaking at this point. So because we don't have a TR 101 on file for that WAC.
Okay. With that, do we hear a motion then to table?
So moved. This is Tim.
To Tim.
Second, Lansdell.
Okay. Moved and seconded to table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, 1, 2, 4 is tabled. For more information, thank you. Okay, now do we want a quick break and come back at just before 3?
Yeah, that seems to correlate with the people coming back on the call too. So
Okay.
And just a
say-
reminder, Todd, I won't be back at 3, but if I'm done briefing city council by 4, I can jump back on for the last hour.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
And with that, just to clarify, quorum will be okay without Lance here if he's the only one not returning.
Okay.
Thanks, Dustin.
Thank you, Lance.
Okay, let's say
I'm gonna be leaving too, so this is Paul.
that's right, Paul.
That will put us in a lack of quorum. Well, no, I think we'll be right at it with
Okay.
Paul leaving as well.
Okay, thank you. Let's just say 3 o'clock at this point. We'll see everyone back here at 3 o'clock.
Hey, Dustin, can I just
Thank you.
ask a question?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I know I'm on the ICC code and correlation. Obviously, I went on vacation and been trying to catch up and all this stuff. Was I also going to be helping with the code of correlation for? I think I wasn't I? For
So we've
Oh, yeah.
had the 2 correlation meetings. Everybody's welcome to join. We just asked for about 5 volunteers. You should, if you were I think you were included in that one. You should have got invites to that, but I think for the moment, correlation groups are over with, but should we have more, I'll make sure that we include you in it.
Because I remember I went on vacation and then I was gone down the Galapagos and all that stuff. So I just trying to catch up, and that's all. I'm fine being on it because I'm not going on another vacation for a while. So I just wanted to. If you need the help, I'm here to help. So
10-4. Well, next time we have a correlation group, I will make sure you're included in the invite.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are we back?
There's still a lot of people on our list of attendees, at least.
Okay. Did you start the recording, Dustin?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you did. Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So we said we're gonna do 2 touch points here. We're going to 5 today, so 3 o'clock. We just flipped the page, so we're making progress, but we need to keep accelerating through it. So we're on agenda item 11. So if you're here for the EVs or the item 26, which is embodied greenhouse gas emissions, we'll still maybe check in at 4 if that's okay.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay.
We have a
let's
hand
keep
up from Corey Shaw.
Oh, I'm sorry, Corey. Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you for letting me speak. I'm off your agenda item, but for item number 26, I do know that there's a small group of us who are meeting Wednesday to go over that item and some of our comments, and that would be between NBI and some of your members. So I was wondering if maybe it would make sense to just postpone even discussing that item until we follow up with that meeting on Thursday.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to take action until there's, thank you for that. And it's possible we don't even get to it today, but I think it was more just an opportunity if someone wanted to speak to it today to inform it so that we're best prepared on Thursday. Okay. Unless there's any desire by the tag to just officially table it. All right. Okay, let's move forward. Agenda item 11 is petition 063. And who go ahead. Josh, you were gonna pick this one up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just start out, and I know we're trying to move quick here, so I'll try to move quick through this as well. We had tabled this because there was the opportunity to have more discussion with ASCE and some other folks within the industry. There's actually been quite a bit of discussion in the background, so I'm hoping I can take maybe just 5 or 7 minutes to catch folks up on what we were looking at, what we've since learned. And the conclusion is this proposal is going to need to be revised no matter what, based on the new information we have. But I want to understand from the tag how we want to collectively handle this so that I can get something on Thursday to look at.
Perfect. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Dustin, is it okay if I share my screen? Or is that
not a problem at all? Let me stop my share and you should have the ability to go for it now.
So I don't expect everyone to read this whole thing as we go. If anyone's interested, I'm happy to share it. But I'm more using it for my notes and folks to kind of follow along. So I see Michael Barth has his hand up. Should we address that before I dive in?
I just have a quick question as to when I click on the 063 link on the agenda, I'm coming up with 126. So I don't have access to the current 063.
Let me check here. So the link on the agenda could be wrong, but let's see here on the website is also wrong. So that is
and I'm not the only one then.
I can say though, I don't know that you're going to get a ton of value from that current proposal. By the time we're done talking here, I think we'll kind of see we're heading in a little bit different direction.
Okay.
Definitely though, thank you for pointing that out because I'm sure we'll want to get that cleared up.
Thank you.
So diving right in, I'm kind of going all the way back to 1995, giving a little bit of history of what we've been doing with snow loads in Washington, why ASE is changing and where we have some concern. So we had these Structural Engineers Association of Washington put out this white paper in 1995 based on data from the 80s. It's been continually reissued until most recently January 31st of 2021. It established a few things. One, it provided mapping for Washington state ground snow loads based on contour lines, which they called ISO lines. They gave you these coefficients to multiply by elevation to determine your appropriate ground snow load, and then the code factors it from there. It also kind of established the minimum snow load that we've been using for some time in Washington state of 25 pounds per square foot for the roof, which my understanding is it kind of comes from ASE has a minimum 20. And then there's a 5 PSF random snow surcharge. Also states that snow drift is generally not a concern in low-lying lands of Washington, and this kind of stayed the standard for some time. In the ASCE 705 and 710, I'm not sure about earlier, that predates my practice, but starting here, 705, 710 had snow load maps that were officially referenced in the code. The SEAW maps were not. However, it mostly covered just the Puget Sound, and the rest of Washington was considered case study area. In those case study areas, building jurisdictions were mostly using the SAAW maps or adopting their own policies largely from those maps. Fast forward to the ASCE 716, which is currently in effect, and they completely took all maps for Washington and a number of other states out and replaced it with those states' local maps often produced by structural engineering groups like ours. In our case, the code specifically referenced the SEAW white paper, and that's what we're currently using as the adopted map standard. In 722, they've done a massive effort to kind of bring some of this snow load data into the 21st century. They have a lot more data available. They have a lot more rigor in the analysis, just a lot more ability to do a formalized study today than what they had when the last SAAW map was created. It's also based on a risk targeted approach. For those of those who are less interested in structural, it's generally the direction the ASCE has been taking other loads like seismic and wind, and where we kind of foresee loads to continue going. It's basing things off of a probability of collapse as opposed to a recurrence interval, which is a probability that a load will exceed in a certain amount of time. Don't get bogged down in that, just kind of moving on here. But it ends up changing quite a few processes within the code that make snow loads look much bigger, but they kind of reduce back down through these factors. Well, we saw this and said, great, there's going to be an online tool from ASCE where we can pull all these snow loads. This is a better study, better source of data. And we went through and did a sampling of about 30 locations, and then some other folks involved helped get some additional points put on that map. And we found that there was significant divergence between the SAAW maps and the ASCE 22 maps. Some places had snow load increasing 400%, some had it dropping almost 70%. And when we saw this complete disconnect, we figured there must be some kind of concern and started diving into this. The proposal that you guys have right now was our first approach, which just said, hey, we want to adopt the SAAW maps as Washington State. This is what we've been using. We'll include all the factors necessary to do appropriate conversions from this risk-targeted approach to the old mean recurrence interval approach, or rather the opposite direction, because our data would be from mean recurrence interval and taking it to risk-targeted, and handle some of that sticky and challenging things all through amendment. It should be noted that there's not a perfect conversion. There's appropriate conversions, but they may not be perfect to go from SAAW to the risk target approach that ASCE 22 is using, and that all of its factors and load combinations are based on. So that was where we were heading, but we were able to talk with John Duntman and Brennan Bean with ASCE. They were kind of heading up this research effort and have been going around talking to lots of different state groups who are expressing concern over the same thing and trying to help everyone get on the same page of what they've provided. And through conversations with them, the long and short is we've discovered that their map is based on a half-mile by half-mile grid. And the problem is Washington's topography changes very, very quickly in some places. So the mapped elevation they've calculated snow load off of and the site elevation may be different. The folks from ASC have pointed out to us, if you kind of dig into the fine print, that it tells you, hey, if you have a significant difference between your mapped elevation and the elevation of your site, particularly in topographically complex areas, engineers should consult authority having jurisdiction in locations where, oh man, now I started reading as I'm speaking, said it out of order, but where the elevations are significantly different, they say, hey, you should talk to your AHJ. Some of the folks on the line during that time had pointed out, hey, what if the AHJ doesn't have a method? What would you like us to do? And there is no official method, but they laid out some options of how you can sample surrounding points and come up with a reasonable approach. So that makes sense. And there is theoretically a path from code to website fine print, which says you need to do these things. But my and others' concern is still that that's not going to be caught, and it can lead to pretty extreme inaccuracies in our snow load if you're not understanding how these tools are behaving. And on face level, they're pretty easy to just trust. So that brings us to, okay, that's great, but what do we do about it? I should also mention there's a couple items that were brought up. Seismic load effects can also be affected by your snow load. It does seem like ASCE has adjusted things to cover it. That was a follow-up item I had from our last meeting. We want to talk about what we want to do for drift and low-laying areas. And it was also brought up some concerns about existing buildings. For example, if there's a change of occupancy, now they may have to redo their whole roof. I'm personally of the mind that that isn't too big of a concern and seems to match the intent of the code, but I don't want to get bogged down in these. I want to kind of finish this set of history and where I'm saying I think our options are, and then open up to some brief discussion to hopefully inform how we can get a proposal together that we can talk about and take action on Thursday. So with that in mind, the options as I see it, we could do what we have in the proposal right now that I'm no longer a fan of, where we force the adoption of the SAAW maps and just adjust where needed. I was a fan of that out of familiarity. Having learned more, I do believe the ASCE data is better suited. It's just a matter of making sure we get the right data. There was discussion of adopting the SAAW maps as a minimum. So saying, hey, you're either using ASCE 22 or old maps, whatever's the minimum, the end. That's a reasonable approach. It has some challenges, again, with the conversion factors and can lead to some confusion, but makes sense. The folks from ASCE's favorite option was we do nothing and focus on educating the industry on the relevant changes. While I don't necessarily agree with that, I'm concerned that this is more easy to overlook than most things that the industry is catching up on with code changes. The last option, what I'm kind of proposing here that not a lot of people have actually heard, so I'm going a little bit rogue, but we don't adopt SAAW. We move forward with the new maps. However, we ask for two things. One, in our construction documents, we list the mapped and site elevations so the jurisdiction can see how different they are. And we also state that, and these numbers are up for debate, but the ones I'm throwing out there initially is the difference exceeds 15% or 500 foot, then the engineer is going to need to justify the snow load used to the AHJ. I also put in some exceptions in there for differences less than 100 foot, because that really shouldn't matter. Those exact numbers are kind of placeholder and open for discussion, but where I would like to take it, we had a little more time. I do have some proposed language, but it seems like that probably wouldn't be appropriate now. We should maybe open to some conversation just so we can get the best information here so we can keep moving on with our agenda.
Josh, you have the language right below here?
I do have some language. Yeah, I would love to show you guys here. So first is in 1603.1.3, which is stating which snow load data you need to include on your drawings for structural drawings specifically. Simply adding site elevation above sea level and mapped elevation from ASCE 7 hazards tool or equivalent geodatabase. And then the second component of this is in the ground snow load section of chapter 16, which is essentially stating you go to the ASCE and this is where you get all of these loads, and that's great. But it adds snow load justification shall be submitted to the building official to be approved where site elevation above sea level and the mapped elevation from ASCE 7 hazards tool or the equivalent geodatabase used differ by more than the maximum of the following amount. 15% of the site elevation above sea level, 500 feet, with an exception that differences of less than 100 foot in any case shall not require additional justification unless determined necessary by the building official. There was one added
Can you
piece to talk about, but I want to pause here.
Can you clarify what the white and blue? I know the green is what you're proposing, but is the white, blue?
This is just the color coding from the original IBC language. So they have blue for new in the 2024.
Okay, so this is from the 2024 with blue is the new. And okay, all right.
Yeah, so I'm only proposing green underline here. No strikeouts are needed, none of that. This latter piece I'd like to hang on to talk about and open up any conversation here since I've thrown a lot of information out there. Hey, Hoyt,
do you want to jump in?
Just a couple things. I know we're doing this for the IBC. It's easy to use that stuff, but we also have the IRC too for this. You know, jurisdiction has to do table 3. Publish. They're required to publish that. I assume the way I would look at it is that the jurisdiction would have to go in here and look at their worst case scenario, and then that's what they would publish in the table 301. Or is that how you're thinking it would be? And then
I don't think it would be a whole lot different than the current SCAW maps in that regard. I think it's definitely an important point. And there is some guidance about how to convert to that PG ASD, so at least the conversion's covered. But Hoyt, what I think you're getting at is, okay, I'm AHJ and someone says fill out this table. Where do I grab this number from? I think it's a similar challenge that currently exists in areas that have varying snow loads. For example, say Tacoma, Olympia, Seattle. This really isn't too much of a challenge. We know what our snow loads are for essentially all the areas because they're low laying. But if you're in, you know, Ellensburg or a lot of Kittitas County or Spokane County, this can vary a lot. And what most of those jurisdictions have done is put out a map that they've been using for general snow, and in their IRC table, they are making some reference to this is the minimum snow, but you're going to have to look at map data because you can't do a one size fit all in a lot of jurisdictions. I don't know if that really resolves that issue, but I don't know if we're creating another challenge as well, but I'm definitely interested in hearing more on that.
Well, that's fine. I was just curious if you just thought about that.
Hoyt,
So,
Hoyt, if I can respond, I think that the IRC is going to need to have a code change proposal anyway, or jurisdictions are going to have to modify how they're doing stuff anyway, because in the IRC, you're still going to have to, I think, create loads as ultimate strength rather than allowable.
I'm actually going to jump in real quick, Roger. They are keeping things ASD in the IRC. So they have a conversion of multiplying these new ultimate strength level loads by 0.7 to get to the service level loads.
Yeah, it's all working or allowable stress. I'm used to saying working stress. Apologize.
And maybe it may follow and change because the IRC tends to lag behind about a code cycle on some of these changes, but it is a sticky situation that I don't know if we can entirely address here, but it's a good point everyone's mentioning. And I'll maybe throw out there for people on the call, I do a lot of IRC buildings, engineering for a lot of IRC buildings. I use the IBC to do it, but I do a lot of IRC and a lot of it in high snow load regions. Probably the majority of my projects are all happening in Eastern Washington where we have more snow load variability. And generally what we're seeing is they're saying, hey, see the map, or this is your minimum and it may be higher. Everything east of the river is whatever and everything west is whatever. But anyways, Roger, I see your hand.
Yeah, first off, Josh, I wanted to say thank you for spearheading this. It's been a bit of a challenge to kind of get our arms around it. I like your proposal. Just because if you look at the other options, it doesn't seem like any of the other options really are make a lot of sense at this stage of the game. So I like where you're going. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about whether the 15% and 500 feet are the right numbers, but I like the direction you're heading. I guess I'd like to hear from some of the building officials, but yeah.
Go ahead, Hoyt.
Yeah, I love that. I'm actually one that's pretty supportive of going to the ASCE maps and using them the way they are. I brought it up originally because I noticed there's a lot of changes around the state where loads are going to be different than what people are used to. And it was just for clarification. And I apologize for creating a whole bunch of work for people to get the difference. But my personal opinion, I like the proposal using the ASC 7 maps. But it is, the only thing is I've looked at a lot of different jurisdictions. A lot of places are going to be changing. And it's, I think in the industry, people are going to be a little, you know, anytime there's a big change, people get a, you know, a little bit not very happy when they have to go back and redesign their building when it comes to the time it comes to our building code reviews. So
it's similar to what they did with wind in 2016, and that was painful for sure. I also like to say, Hoyt, you said, sorry, stirring up a whole thing. I'm glad you stirred all of this up. I think this is an important thing for us to look at. And I also just want to point out real quick while we're talking about all this, I think, Hoyt, you might have alluded to a little bit. To be clear, our entire amendment and changes from model code at this point essentially sum up to we're saying, hey, we want some limits where you need to justify your snow load, and we would like to list those elevations on the plans. Short of that, there are no changes from the model code at this point. And also, Hoyt, to some of your point of those things changing drastically, while some of those exist, when you adjust for some of these elevations, I find that they've been much, much closer than they first appeared, especially once you appropriately apply the factors to go from ultimate to service, which not everyone's going to understand that difference. Just like when we went from 85-mile-per-hour wind to 110, it was a shock for people. And I know as an engineer, I got a lot of calls. Hey, why the hell are we designing for 110 now? It's always been 85. And you had to explain how these conversion factors affect things. So all really good points, Hoyt, and things that I hope adding some of this will alert people to, so they're paying a little bit of attention to it. So again, just want to, I'll stop talking a moment, but making sure that everyone sees we're not actually adding anything new, except making sure we're seeing how different our elevations are. And if they're significantly different, asking for some further justification.
John?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Josh, I think this is great. This is a great approach to make people recognize that this is going forward. I do think that there's going to be a substantial education effort needed on both the regulation and the design side to get the word out there, and this is how things are going to happen. And yeah, don't be surprised if your numbers suddenly look like they're they've grown 400%. That's the way it's going to be, and being able to explain it and get people on board. Yeah, I think there's still going to be the question about drift that we'll have to figure out, but yeah, but otherwise, I think this is a great way to approach it.
Great. Well, thank you for that, John. I'm glad you actually brought up drift because I have one more bit to bring up about drift. And this is less thought through. This is something I threw together more today, but being kind of reminded of the drift issues, I looked into the SCAW maps, and their recommendation was that it's generally not a concern for low-lying lands of Washington, which seems to match our experience here. We don't really get big snow drifts in low-lying lands of Washington. Our snow events melt really quickly. They tend to be a mix of water and ice and snow, and they're not this blustery snow that leads to drifts. That was a surprise to the ASCE folks when we mentioned that. They were very surprised by this, but I think it is proven in our state. So I looked into the SCAW maps. They didn't have a clear-cut definition of low-lying land. They said different jurisdictions use different ranges. They said somewhere between 500 foot and 700. Some people say anywhere where the minimum's 25 PSF. So I placeholder for now threw out an idea of snowdrift loading for pitched roofs, and I emphasize pitched roofs because I think it's still important on parapets. Where site elevation above sea level is less than 300 feet shall not be required with, I might need to work on my wording, but my intent was where the building official says it's okay, we don't need to do snowdrift under 700 feet. Now, whether or not we need that, and it kind of goes to Hoyt's point earlier with the previous proposal of saying, if the building official says it's okay, then it's okay. And I mean, that's theoretically the case in a lot of ways, but I know that section 104 in IBC that talks about the authority of the building official, it says they are not allowed to reduce requirements. So because this is technically a reduction in requirement, and not that it always goes that way, but since this is a reduction in requirement, I thought perhaps we needed to codify something, but I'm seeing some hands up from folks who might know more about that. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
Okay, go ahead, Hoyt.
Okay. In some areas, in like in Okanagan and some of the stuff in Washington State, they do snowdrift on a lot of the buildings over there, and they're less than 700 feet above sea level in some areas. How did you get the 700 feet again? Was it, does that number, is there some rationale behind that, or is that just for Western Washington side?
It was from SEAW, who said generally we consider low-lying lands between 500 and 700, maybe 500 is more appropriate. It was a number to throw in here and then have a discussion about if we're even wanting this as a group. You know, this is a sticky one because there's not a great rationale to say we want to get rid of it, besides we haven't been doing it, and that's what people are used to. I think the reality is if we don't do this, nothing's going to change, and most of Western Washington's not going to do snowdrifts unless they have parapets or sliding snow or something of that nature. So I don't know that this is the hill I want to die on. Throwing it out for conversation because I'm a little on the fence with it, to be honest myself.
Roger.
Yeah, I just would like, as a designer, I would like to have it a little bit more clear cut. And I know that the city of Seattle or Tacoma will have a clear rule, but if you are getting on some smaller locations, they just may not know. and so I don't like leaving it quite as open as that. Dropping it down to 500 feet or something would be fine with me, but so, and I'm kind of the same way. I don't think that it isn't the most critical part of this change. And I agree with John, it's definitely going to take some education, but I would prefer to have it specified a little bit more clearly about snowdrifts than leaving it open like that, like you've got it there.
So Roger, just some clarification. I'm curious your thoughts. Do you think we should kind of nix the snowdrift conversation, or maybe make it 500 and leave out some of the language about building official? Or
I think 500, and then get rid of the shall not be required period.
What do other folks think of that? And I don't want to take all the time and turn this into a discussion because that's not our goal, but just so I can get a best foot forward on a proposal to review, I could get out to Dustin tonight. So hopefully we have enough time to have it up for Thursday, and people can correct me if that's wrong. But do people have any strong opinions, not getting in the nitty gritty of the language, about less than 500?
I would even say my opinion is not strong, Josh.
Fair. Or we can just leave the drift conversation off. I mean, technically there's nothing in the code that says we don't have to do it right now. The code reads we have to do it right now. So
yeah, I'm having this is Hoyt real quick.
Please.
I've never completely understood why so many different places, when you're real close, like in Redmond, they did some snowdrift. Another time they didn't require snowdrift. This is when I was designing stuff and certain things. The office I work for, we just went ahead and did snowdrift because we just thought it was the right thing to do. And I just don't know. I mean, I know we're pulling a number out of a hat. I was really hoping SEAW, the group, the larger group would come together, and it seems like you did that. If they agree with 500 feet for right now.
I will say, Hoyt, they have not commented on this specific 500 foot. So, this is something I'm pulling out of the white paper. And again, if the majority of the tag is uncomfortable with this one, I think it's perfectly reasonable to just take this part of the conversation out.
Julius?
So this is Julius, City of Bellevue. Josh, I'm looking at the white paper right now, and I recommend the SEAW white paper, and it's very specific Western Washington low-lying areas. So I'm a little concerned whether if it's gonna be a state amendment, even 500 feet, 300 feet eh, at Eastern Washington, you're gonna get a significant snow load where you won't consider any drift. So I don't think I think I'm a little concerned whether to put the drift exception in the state amendment.
That is a good point, and I'm looking because I do see where it says Western Washington. Outside of these recommendations, I don't believe they said that specifically, but that's a really good point, Julius. And the more we're all discussing, I'm personally leaning towards more not including it, this whole portion about the snow drift. So let's talk about real quick what we're giving up here from the designer standpoint. It's a little more effort to do snow load design. Realistically, for the vast majority of buildings, it's not going to have effect unless there is a parapet or some other tall wall, in which case the effect is pretty appropriate. And I would say most engineers I know, even if it says, hey, you don't need to do snow drift for this parapeted roof, they'll go ahead and do it. If you have a big wall and a low roof up against it, you still kind of go ahead and do it because it makes sense, though not well enforced. Roger?
Yeah, I would say for us, doing a whole lot of work in Western Washington, you're right. It is work doing calculations, and we have to put the snowdrift loading on our drawings, and it rarely impacts us. It really has an impact. So it is work we have to do, even though it doesn't really have any impact to the design. So that's why my preference would to leave something in, and I was even going to suggest, what the tag has to do is send it along to put this into CR 102. We will then get public comment, and I think that public comment may mean we take it out, or we make it 500 feet, not 700 feet or 300 feet, and kind of leave that snowdrift open for the public comment. But again, I'm a little hesitant to just get rid of it, because I know of all the projects that we do in Western Washington where we've not had to do it, and it wouldn't impact the design either. So
Okay. Hoyt and John is back in.
One other thing, we're talking about parapets, and there's some reduction for parapets you can do for snowdrift. There was a while ago when I looked at it. But you also got mechanical units that get stuck on the roof. You got other stuff that's being stuck on roofs a lot. Periodically, where you'd have to also do snowdrift in that location. I just wanted to bring that up to make sure we're not just thinking of parapets, because you can actually reduce that drift. I think of parapets, what I remember before. I'd have to look at it again. But there are certain snowdrift requirements for parapets that are different than like elevated roof structures that are on the roof. And a lot of the commercial buildings that I have, that's where they put all the mechanical units. And some of them are fairly large. That goes up there.
No, that's a good point, Hoyt, and we should be expanding the conversation and not be just parapets, but any obstruction on the roof that drift could build up on. I do think that's a good point. And I also think one of the things we really want to consider is pitched roofs versus flat roofs. I think there's a really different consideration there, but anyways, I digress. John? Oh, you may be on mute.
Yep, sorry. In general, I think the drift conversation happens because, as I recall, being trained back in the 80s, that the idea was, again, was the wet snow idea, that it doesn't blow and move around like the lighter stuff. So that was part of the reason I remember justifying, don't worry about drift around here. I think Roger has a good idea to advance this with a number, whether it's 500 or 700 to get the feedback. My question would be about the 500, where that's a little too low. A lot of hills around here top out right around the 500-foot mark, and in the Western Washington. And I think you want to, the intent of the white paper was to eliminate all those. So it'd almost be like a survey of, okay, how much of the area would you be encompassing if you get over the, if you set it at 500. 300 would capture a lot of the area, I think. That'd be a little bit of a concern. I seem to recall that you know, talking to the geologist folks, that you know, when the glaciers came by, they scraped the tops off all the hills, and it's almost like a plateau if you look around. And
Mhm.
so whatever that top of that plateau is, maybe that's where you set it. I don't know, but that would be something to look at.
And real quick, I don't want to lose something that Julius brought up earlier about Western Washington. I think it's probably appropriate that we add to the sentence, if the sentence moves forward, Western Washington. Is everyone seem agreeing with that? Is that a good enough delineator just to say Western?
Yes.
Yeah, that would correspond with what the paper says.
I also want to point out, I put these words pitched roofs in there, and that was just me unilaterally. I don't know if people agree with that, and I'm happy to take that out because it sounds like the conversation is moving away from that, especially as we get less restrictive here.
John, I just appreciate when building code discussions reference glacial movement. Tim,
Josh, I would say take it out and let's get that in and get a proposal and we can talk about it in more detail next week on Thursday.
Okay, just don't worry about this one for now. I like that plan. I want to get something in. This is critical.
Oh.
This is technically right now, we already have to do snow load and we're just not doing it.
So I just, you know, the Western Washington thing, I think we all understand what that is. But is there a better qualifier? My mind went to marine climate zone because it's because of that wet snow that I'm hearing that we don't look at it that way. But I don't know if marine is referenced anywhere except for the energy code. So then, but as long as Western Washington is clear enough, or we believe it's clear enough, I guess it is.
What if we said west of the Cascades, knowing we have a low elevation, you're not going to be in the Cascades and have a debate. But it's a good point, Tim, and I had a little bit of the same concern. But I kind of like Roger's idea of maybe in the interest of continuing on today, this can be discussed to be added to the proposal, and I can put the rest of this together into something that's reviewable. I can send off tonight, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to discuss better on Thursday. Unless anyone has any final thoughts, I just want to make sure I don't take a lot of time on something that's not actionable today.
Right, that makes sense. Good discussion. And getting any draft up is valuable, and we can still make amendments on Thursday.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for your feedback and time and everything. That's really going to be helpful for putting this together. And Dustin, I will give you back the screen share as soon as my computer cooperates about it.
All right, great.
Are you able to
thank you for
kick me
that,
off,
Josh. Great.
Dustin? Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can kick me off because it's not seeming to let me click into. Thank you. Perfect. All right, I'll stop.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Okay, agenda item 12 is 131. Justin asked for a motion to table till Thursday.
Do we have to make a motion on that, or can we just table it?
Yeah, well, we didn't address it in the agenda. Maybe just quick make a motion, please.
Make a motion to table it till Thursday.
Okay, thanks, Hoyt.
Second, this is Tim.
Thank you, Tim. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, 133 is
Point
tabled till
of
Thursday.
order, Todd.
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
not
please.
I'm not a parliamentarian, but if you needed to do number 12, do you also need a motion to postpone?
What did I say? I'm sorry.
Do you need a motion to postpone 89 or 63?
Yeah, if I confused everyone, I jumped right ahead to 133. You're right. What did people think they voted on? Let's start over here.
Yeah.
Let's go back to agenda item 11. Thank you, Roger. 063 is over just talking about ground snow loads. Let's entertain a motion to table that.
So
Didn't
moved,
create confusion.
Josh.
Okay, thanks, Josh.
Second.
Hoyt, was that you?
Yeah, I second it, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So that's moving second for the ground snow loads, 063. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so 063 is tabled, and then do we want to do 133 just real quickly? Or did you understand what you were voting on there? Clear motion to table 133 again.
Make a motion to table 1 through 3.
Okay, Hoyt. To the second?
Yeah. Second, this is Tim.
Second by Tim. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that 133, which is bottle filling stations, that's tabled for Thursday. Thank you for that. Okay, agenda item 13 is 066 fixed guideway transit. I remember where we left this, but who can speak to it? This one was discussed in correlation, wasn't it?
Yeah, hi Todd, it's Mark Murray with Sound Transit.
Oh, hi, Mark. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so this proposal is a follow-up to a proposal I submitted about 3 years ago for the last round, and part of it is some cleanup. There was a couple of just typographical errors that were published, and so this is this first table is just to correct that error from before. It's just we just got the two lines got swapped, so that's a pretty easy one. Based on looking at the lobby loading is 100 versus the platform loading is based upon a different parameter for returning occupant load for transit stations. So, so we had that before. It just got transposed when it was republished and printed into the code. Our proposal, I think, had it correct, so somehow it just got flipped around.
Okay.
And just to maybe give a little bit of background to this standard, it's an interesting standard specific to light rail. This standard is adopted by the building code and by the fire code, but then the standard itself refers back to building code subject matter. And when it does that, rather than referring back to the building code, it refers to NFPA 101. So then we end up with particular aspects of the code being in the building code and in NFPA 101 be adopted, which creates sometimes a conflict and a lot of confusion for designers and planner reviewers. So our intention with a lot of this cleanup work is to simply have the standard, and that's what we're looking at here, is standard language point back to the IBC rather than NFPA 101. Does that make sense? NFPA standards never refer to the building code, they always refer to NFPA 101, where they actually have to talk about building code subject matter. So that's why it's there. So the first item on the top there, that is a clarification to, actually this is another a typo. I can't remember if the building code changed, but it referred to 1008 and the correct citation for exit signs is 1013. So that's just a quick cleanup there. The next item down, just stop me if there's questions along the way. This end below requires a separation between public and non-public floor areas of a light rail station. It doesn't clarify the details of how you do that. It leaves it kind of open. So it's really subject to interpretation. And so our intention here is to refer back to the International Building Code, Chapter 5, which everyone's familiar with respect to how to separate public and non-public areas.
Hey, Mark, do you have a couple of questions from Hoyt and John? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
One question, I was going through and reviewing this, but some of them, like the turnstile, for example, those sections 5.3.8.2 and 5.3, those all come from NFPA, right? Those aren't in the NFPA 101. A lot of the references that I read through there, I didn't see how it was like for dimensions in accordance to requirements of International Building Code for a turnstile type fairway barrier. I don't believe that's in the International Building Code that I remember, and I apologize I didn't go through and look at this stuff. Hopefully you did. I thought this was in NFPA 101.
Security access turnstiles were added to the IBC, I think 2 cycles ago.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, they're in there now, and that's it's a great option for if we end up. We actually right now most of our stations don't have barriers for entering the paid fare zone. It's on the honor system. We're having a lot of folks who aren't paying the fares, and we're actually doing study on creating a fare barrier where you actually have to scan a card before you actually enter the station. So knowing that we're studying that, we thought it would be good to have all the provisions that are allowed in the building code allowed at these stations as well.
So the turnstile ones that I was familiar with that are in the building code are like the circular ones that you go in to help with the energy code that you walk in. The way I understand these are the ones where you have a barrier like you do at a stadium or something, where you, or like you go to the ferries, for example, you flash your card and then it just lets you walk through it because it turns.
So there's two types. The top turntiles type barriers are at the 5385. That's referring to traditional turnstiles that are those 3-prong type that you're talking about that click when you go through them. The security access turnstiles are more traditional that have a gate that swings away.
Okay.
And they're much more appropriate for, you know, really moving a lot of people, and they allow you more exit capacity for an emergency. So there's a benefit to actually allowing those, and that's why we're proposing to be added.
And then the second question I have, if you don't mind, I always like, did you also talk to the fire group, the fire tag about the same change, or is this the first time coming to us?
You know, I'm trying to remember if I submitted a proposal for the fire code. It's been so long since I submitted this. I did before. Last time around, we submitted one for each because this subject matter landed in both codes. This particular time that we're looking only at means of egress, and I don't know if there's comparable language in the fire code. That's a good question, though. We could look at that and see if there's a need to have it reflected in the fire code as well.
John?
Here you go. Thanks. Hi, Mark. Got a question on your 5.311.2 on the means of egress lighting section. If you scroll up,
yeah,
a bit, Dustin. Yeah. So these are just to be clear, I want to figure out, these are the numbering there are sections out of the NFPA standard. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's chapter 5 in NFPA 130.
Okay, so what in NFPA 130, 5.311.1 talks about the means of egress lighting, so that's illuminating the pathway. Right. In the actual standard, does 11.2 talk about the exit signs? Because you're changing it to go back to exit signs, and yes, pointing to the right section number 1013 if that truly is about exit signs. The weird thing is that 5.311 is about means of egress lighting. So it seems to be that 11.2 is out of place, but if that's the way the standard is written, then that's something we have to live with. But this seems to be in kind of a weird place.
You're right, John. When I first read this, I was trying to figure out how to correlate it as best I could, and I ran into that same point of confusion, and I wasn't quite clear how to best address it. I was really trying to help the user really understand they just need to go look at the building code details to apply it, and that was my intent.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, otherwise, without the change you make, 11.1 and 11.2 essentially say the same thing. So
yeah, that's true. I can take a look at that further, John, and see if there's a way to make it better. I think it's a good point, as clear as we can. But I was trying to make the minimal amount of change to the standards I could when I made these proposals.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
I have a question regarding the fire separation piece. Mark, could you walk me through how I would use Chapter 5 of the building code? How that would actually get me somewhere where there would be a fire separation? Because my understanding is that it's not a incidental use that would be required to be separated in that table, unless that is also part of this amendment.
So that section, Chris, of the standard was, I think it was 5243 or 5244, was amended before, and perhaps I should have included that for context in this proposal. But we did pick up on that before. I worked with Ken Burlett on that, and Ardell of the city of Seattle, and what we did on the other one, and it was really talking more about occupancy separations, I think, on that case. And we did refer to chapter 5 for incidental use areas. So that one's already been adopted. And so these are two different issues. So it's really not, so one is separating public from non-public, right? Which is a whole different category of consideration. And the non-system versus system is separating basically transportation uses from non-transportation uses. An example I put in the commentary for that would be as if there was a coffee shop in a station where you would separate that as required by the building code for a different type of occupancy.
And so I guess what I'm getting at is the NFPA 130 standard says you shall separate them. But if I go to chapter 5 of the building code, it's going to say I can look at a building as either separated or non-separated use and not necessarily require that separation.
Yeah, it's not the clearest language. You notice this the 5245, both of these have a little ** on them. And if you go to the appendix of NFP 130, it talks about separation, but it doesn't talk about whether or not that separation needs to be rated. So it seems like it kind of gives you all those same options. It needs to be a physical separation, but it could be a non-rated separation or a rated separation. And it kind of gives you some guidance language on it by doing a risk assessment on what level of separation is needed based upon the risk and whether or not the building is sprinklered, factors in. So it seems to be going down the same road that chapter 5 goes down.
But the model language says is the black text, right? The model language out of NFPA 130?
Yes.
So it says fire separated from non-public areas. So that doesn't, at least on the surface of it, maybe the commentary muddles things, but that to me reads as you must separate by at least an hour, I would expect.
Yeah. You have to pull up the language on that because there is some explanatory language on this subject that was helpful for me when I wrote this, and it's been so long. But
I guess my recommendation here would be there's nothing in chapter 5 that we're actually pointing to. We're pointing to a circular loop in chapter 5 that's going to not really get you anywhere. And I would recommend is just stating what the separation requirement is here, and not pointing back to chapter 5 and just saying, 1 hour or 2 hour or 3 hour, whatever the number is, fire barrier construction, assuming that's what we want it to be in accordance with chapter 7, the appropriate section of fire barriers or whichever.
5242. Okay. What about for 5245?
Agreed, because you're still not going to get there from once you go to chapter 5 of the building code. I don't think you actually get anywhere. There's nothing in chapter 5 that's going to say how to fire separate the two things, because chapter 5 is going to allow you to look at it non-separated or separated use.
And I think that was the idea, is defer to chapter 5, determine what occupancies you have, and determine whether or not you can take advantage of non-separated use or not, right? I mean, it really just points you to use that particular process versus this one, which is
okay.
Right.
I'd be curious how that works with the language in front of us, because it says shall be fire separated. So that's the only confusion I have.
Oh, good point. Okay. So it's really more of an evaluation. Thank you. That's helpful. I'd be happy to make some modifications to this and come back on those two elements. So there's an opportunity for that.
Ask another question. When you have lighting systems for enclosed train wells shall be in accordance with that NFPA 101, except per that exception. Is that lighting system? Because like in chapter 10 is like for egress and things like that. Was that lighting system the overall lighting of the enclosed train well, or is it actually for egressing in chapter 10? It just passed.
Was it down below? I think we just scrolled. we're down there in 6. So chapter 6 in NFPA 130 is trainways, right? So this is referring to exit from a trainway, and typically this would be an exit from a elevated guideway down
So
the
it's
grade,
lighting
or exit from a tunnel up to grade from the emergency walkway along the guideway, right? So it really, the intent is to clarify the provisions in chapter 10 that relate to stairs and doors that might serve an elevated guideway or a tunnel.
So would that be the emergency egress lighting is what you're talking about?
No, chapter 10 is really a means of egress topic. So it's really talking about the door swing, the landing, the stair rise and run, the handrail, all of those things that would apply to a stair. And doors leading to that stair or discharging from that stair. That's what this would address.
How is that a lighting system?
Lighting is, so these are grouped together. So chapter 5 is the station specific criteria, and the language up above it is just a small portion of that entire chapter. And then chapter 6 gets into the trainway. And 6310 is about exit stairs from the trainway.
I was thinking of 512 is what I was looking at.
You're 512. Yes, lighting systems. I'm sorry. Okay, so lighting systems for enclosed trainway. That is the lighting system that illuminates the emergency walkway along the trainway. So there's an emergency walkway is required along the entire trainway, whether it's in a tunnel, on grade or elevated. It's a 36-inch wide walkway. And it's kind of like a aisle or a corridor where the surface of that walkway needs to be illuminated. And the provisions in NFPA 101 and the building code are very similar. It's the 1 foot candle per, I think it's 1 foot candle of illumination on average. And there's a variation allowance. And that's what this is referring to.
Tim, did you have a question?
No, I was gonna rehash something and I decided not to.
Okay. Okay, Darren.
I'm new to this, but I was just wondering, I saw where it said exit lighting or exit sign in related to escalators, and I'm not finding escalators in 1008 or 1013 as a required area that has to have emergency illumination or exit signs in IBC.
A good point. NFPA 130 allows the use of escalators as a means of egress. The amendment we looked at before at the state level addressed that. I know that it's not allowed by the building code. And I know that in Seattle, it was not allowed at all. I can't remember where we left it at the state level, but the reason why the lighting is in there for escalators is if the building official allows escalators to be used as a means of egress, then you would need to have emergency illumination for the escalators.
Okay, so it's not a requirement of the IBC though, right?
It is not.
Okay.
That's right. And I believe the way the language in the IBC, it refers to the standard on the subject, and there's some qualifying language in there about conditions of use. I think, for example, you can't, it's limited to 50% of the exits can be escalators is one of the provisions. And I'm not too familiar on it familiar about this topic because we haven't used escalators for means of egress, and we don't intend to in the future.
Okay, thank you.
I read it right here. You have, the way I read this, so this gets put in the code, lighting systems for enclosed stairways shall be installed according to the International Building Code. So that would be every enclosed trainways or whatever will be installed per 101 and 113. It doesn't give an option. You know what I'm saying? That you just have to do it. Is that?
Correct. You have to do it. In tunnels.
Okay, that's fine.
That's right. In closed terrain with a tunnel, you have to have lighting. I mean, it has to be emergency lighting. That's right.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure I'm reading all this correctly. Thank you.
Okay. Mark, is there anything else?
I think we got to the bottom of this. And yeah, it looks like pretty good feedback. Appreciate it.
Is there any action that we need to take today, or is there homework?
Where would we put this in our code? I mean, what you wouldn't put in chapter 5 of the I codes. Where would this be put in? Which code do you want this put into?
There's a section already in the building code. It's chapter 31, section 16, 3116. So these would be amendments to that section that was adopted into the building code 3 years ago. And so these would be minor amendments to that section.
Okay, so it's in chapter 31 then.
Yeah, chapter 31, that's right. Yeah.
So your sections where you have 6.3.3.10, I'm just looking on the screen.
Yeah.
That would have to be revised to match where it's supposed to go in that chapter 31.
Correct. You got it.
So we can't do anything right now until it's complete. I mean.
Well,
Okay.
based upon the feedback, I think there's opportunity to improve this, the 5242 and the 5245 above. I didn't hear anything else that needed to be revised, but that's just the notes I'm taking.
Okay, Hoyt, is that would you like to see a motion to table this and look for amendments to it, revisions?
I'd make a motion to table this until he gets all the section criteria corrected. If he wants to put it in the building code, that would be.
This is Tim, and I'll second that motion to table. If I can expand a little bit on comment, it's just these sections are correct. If you look at, let's see, 3116.2, we actually modified NFPA 130 and included these sections within the IBC now. So we do have these sections, and his section references seem to be consistent with what those are. But it's definitely worth a double check. It's just, you know, we did modify the actual NFPA 130 with those sections like 5.2 point whatever. So, yeah.
Okay, well, sounds like we have a motion and a second, and then we would pick this up on Thursday. Mark, you let us know if you need any help with that renumbering. Any other discussion? All those in favor to table signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay, with that then, 1066 is tabled to Thursday. Thank you, Mark, for that.
Thanks, Todd. And by chance of
discussion.
a conflict on Thursday, could we perhaps discuss this again on the 12th? Looks like there's another meeting on the 12th.
I think we're doing final passage and everything, but it's possible, Dustin, that we are going to have some things carrying over, right?
There's a potential for it. So we're looking to try to have final action on everything by this Thursday. And I would ask that if we're trying to hear this again, the revisions come in by 1 o'clock on Wednesday. I know that's a short turnover, but that allows us to post it for 24 hours prior to this meeting. I guess it depends on where we're at the end of today, whether or not we feel like we'll be able to get through an agenda on Thursday, addressing all of our proposals.
That's great, Justin. Thanks for that. And I have 10 to 1. Is that the meeting time for Thursday this week?
Yeah, I don't think so. It should be 1 to 4 or 5.
Oh, okay. I was looking on the website, so that was my confusion. If it's 1 to 5, no problem.
Okay, let me just double check what we have on the website there. And with our Gov delivery coming out, it would be a formalized coming up here when we get the agenda ready for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. All right, we're at a 4 o'clock check-in, so we are on 13. I really doubt in the next hour we're going to get through all of these. So let's decide as a tag. We have one more IBC proposal, which is 14, agenda item 14. And then we move into our IEBC, which we have not heard yet. And there's about 6 or 7 of those.
On this
So
next one for 003, I have a revision that came in earlier today on this one as well. So might be appropriate to talk about it real quick and table till Thursday.
Okay, and I have in my notes here, Matt. Are you still with us? Let's quickly decide as a tag though what we're going to do about these bigger lifts towards the end here, the EV and the greenhouse gas emissions. We're going to push forward, but likely we're not going to get through 8 proposals, right?
Likely
in an
not.
hour.
No.
Okay, so I think with that we can just give notice that we probably won't get to the 118, which is the embodied greenhouse gas, unless there's anything anyone needs to introduce. There's a revision going to be posted or is posted. Go ahead,
I
Roger.
have a revision for, I'm not sure if I'm expecting more revisions on 118 though.
Go ahead, Roger.
Well, my comment was something different. I know that on 118 there are proponent is getting multiple comments from various people and trying to integrate those. So
Okay.
I think there may very well be an updated proposal
Okay.
that will come in. My question, Todd, is on item number 20. I know we've talked about the 3 other EV charging ones. If we have not had an introduction to number 20, I guess I would kind of like to hear that. And then on Thursday, we're going to need to deal with all 4 of those.
Yeah, I agree. Josh, do you have a related comment?
Just letting you know, I unfortunately have to hop off. I didn't catch we extended this in Thursday's meeting till 5.
Okay.
But I'm gonna have to get going here. So thanks, folks.
Okay, thank you, Josh.
I believe with that, we are now suffering a lack of quorum. We can do
Until
a roll
Lance.
real quick and check that out.
I don't see Lance back yet, right?
No, not yet.
This is Bill.
Okay.
How do you do need for quorum? Because I joined late and didn't announce when I came in.
So Bill, with you being here, I think we might be in luck to keep this one rolling.
All right. Well, let's make sure I agree with Roger. Let's make sure we hear that, but let's keep going in order and then make sure we leave time to hear 1, 2, 3, which is the IEBC EV charging. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to agenda item 14, which is 003. And Matt, are you still with us? Matt announced himself at the beginning from Tacoma. Go ahead, Lucas.
Yeah, I'm a proponent of this proposal here, so I could speak on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll get my video going too if that helps people while I'm talking. And I apologize because, as Dustin mentioned, I did submit a version that did not include all the track changes. I don't believe there was an additional statement at the very beginning of the section, but I'll be brief, but I did want to provide a little bit of the background on why this proposal came to be. The city's been trying to figure out a way to adopt the Type C provisions from the ANSI for a while now. And in doing our own due diligence, we had approached the State Building Code Council, I don't know, it was 6 or 9 months ago. And from our department's review and from the advice we got from State Building Code Council, various tags, it kind of led us to the same sort of advice, which is Type C visitable units are very, close to accessibility. And it's sort of a no-no to, as a local jurisdiction, to try to make any kind of amendments to accessibility. And it was the advice at that time that rather than have a jurisdiction get out ahead or of the state building code or get in conflict with, that in order to be able to adopt those type C standards from the ANSI, one ought to do a state building code amendment proposal. And so that's what this is. Right now, the type C visitable unit standards, they already exist. They're in the ANSI and they've been there for a few code cycles now. There just isn't any applicability language or charging language to get you there. So that's essentially what this is. It's structured as an appendix. That way, we recognize there's pressure on us as jurisdictions to adopt, inclusive housing regulations and to try to get this kind of stuff. But we recognize that not all jurisdictions may be under the same pressure, and there's a lot of different dynamics there. So as an optional appendix, a jurisdiction could adopt this. And so we talked about this it's a week or two ago, and the TAG has suggested a little bit of clarifying language concerning this one being an optional appendix. So you can see there as an underlined strike through the change that I made there under the purpose statement, just pointing that out that it's optional. The language, above that, if you could scroll up just a little bit there, Justin, that the missing language is actually there. So it's not missing. So front and center there, the provisions contained in this appendix are not mandatory unless specifically referenced in the adopting ordinance. That was something that the TAG had suggested. And then at the very end of this section, we clarified that this would apply to sites rather than developments. That's consistent with the language used in the building code for type A units as well. So a type A unit is required whenever you have more than 10 units on a site. So we've adopted the term site rather than developments. So again, and just to conclude, this is merely to get some applicability for a type C unit. That applicability is when you have 3 or more units on a site that you do not already have type A and B units.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
Yeah, I believe I made the motion to table this and provided the guidance on adding that sentence at the top, which I appreciate. And I appreciate you bringing this back. I like the sites provisions below. I remember as a portion of our conversation, there was some comments that you wanted it to be developed or developments, meaning even if they separated each house onto its own lot, that they would still have to provide this. But this at least gives very clear enforceable language. So if you're comfortable moving forward with it as sites, I like the changes and would be definitely recommending for approval to full council.
Thank you, Tim. Roger?
Is that a motion or not?
Not a motion. I wanted to give everybody a chance to say something.
Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I don't have anything that was going to impact Tim's potential motion. I just wanted to let everybody know there are 3 proposals that are calling for an Appendix Q. So if they move forward, just so everybody's aware, there's going to have to be some coordination there if 1, 2, or 3 pass. And then can you page up to the top? I am not a code language expert by any stretch, but the word optional there jumps out at me because I thought that by definition, appendix were optional and only adopted by, if adopted by ordinance. So if the ordinance is adopted, then the word optional in Q 101.1 wouldn't be required. So I'm going to leave that up to Hoyt and John, maybe, who are code language experts, but that word just jumped out to me. I know what you're getting at, and I think this appendix provides is a better introductory there piece, but I think that optional word may not be needed.
Thank you, Roger. John.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with Roger that optional probably is not needed there because you're already covering it in the introduction up above there. It's not mandatory unless you adopt it. I had actually a different question. Why are you proposing to trigger this at 3 units when other types of accessibility requirements get triggered at 4?
Well, we wanted to cover all IBC R2s. So all IBC occupancies basically. And what we're trying to do is, together with a future appendix proposal for the IRC, we're trying to close the loophole of having many IRC buildings together with many IBC buildings on one site, not having to provide any accessibility or visitability. So currently there's that loophole, and we simply want to tally the number of units up, regardless if they're going to be IRC, R3, R1, R4, R2, whatever, and just to catch 3 or more units being that trigger.
Okay. Thanks for the answer.
Hoyt?
Yeah, I was gonna just say the same thing. If we can edit it right now, just asking you if we can just cross out optional, this appendix. I was gonna say the same thing. I just thought we've been editing things before, so I just wanted to make sure we're doing that. And then the other thing is, we are getting this question. This is something I think is a perfect place for an appendix. We're not looking at this to go into the model code like everyone always says. This gives us a direction to be able to adopt something and be able to use. So hopefully this kind of makes our state kind of forward leading when these type C units are actually being proposed and has been adopted in the standards. So I'm in support of this. And then I have a question. Since I work for the city of Tacoma, I know a little bit of, do I have to, can I vote on this or not? I don't know what the ethical thing is on that one.
I mean, that you're not the proponent, you don't stand to benefit from this particular proposal. Is that correct, Hoyt?
That's correct. That's correct.
Then I would say you're allowed to vote on it.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Hoyt. I have a quick question. Thank you, Lucas. So if scroll down, is the definition of site a thing in the building codes? And does that align with our understanding of a site in a development code?
It's not defined in the building code, so you got to go to a dictionary. And that was kind of why there's a few different words there that could work: project, development, site, building, however you wanted to kind of frame it. The reason why we didn't come out of the gates using a word like site, which actually is in line with the terminology that they use for type A units, is just because we do wrestle with that definition ourselves when proposals come in. But it's okay. Site is fine. I'm not opposed to using that word at all. It gives clear direction, like the other speaker pointed out. It's just that we were trying to get aggressive with other words there to try to help us fight that fight when someone tries to say, oh, the buildings we're coming in for permits for, some of them are on another site, some of them are on site A, some of them are on site B. But I don't believe it's defined in the building code.
No, but do you mean it like we do in the development codes, a parcel? Go ahead, Chris. We wouldn't automatically say that you have multiple sites just because you had multiple boundary lines, parcel numbers, or anything like that. Currently, the city of Tacoma looks at anything kind of functionally related. So it's all using one driveway, one parking area, one, using common areas we would call one site. Okay.
Maybe my building official wanted to elaborate on it.
Wait,
Yeah, site is actually defined in the building code, and it's defined a parcel of land bounded by a lot line or designated portion of a public right of way. So site is a defined code, defined
it
item.
says a parcel?
It says, no, it says, yeah, a parcel of land bounded by a lot line or a designated portion of a public right of way. It
Okay,
is defined in the code.
okay.
I
thank you.
apologize.
Tim?
I guess kind of where I was going, because that is definitely how we refer to the enforcement of it in a traditional sense. And that's why I wanted to bring it up to you is what were you looking to do? And if that really was what you're looking to do, although it makes it easily enforceable, I wasn't sure if it met your goal.
I think it still meets our goal. And I think now that we've had some discussion, I think it may be the best terminology to use for, if the state adopts this proposal, and it appears as an appendix. I think it's probably the most generic and then in step with what the rest of the code says. Just to elaborate a little bit more, we're just trying to find the best word there. Again, there's, this doesn't affect the IRC. This code proposal by itself doesn't, and there needs to be a separate proposal to be able to get visible units with IRC buildings. So it's just trying to pick the best, term there when you have that combination of different codes, combination of different buildings, IRC and IBC being applied at once. Like for instance, we have you could have a large plat, you could have mini townhome buildings, and they want to convey ownership separately. They want to subdivide through buildings or subdivide around buildings. We don't want that to be a loophole and to get them out, of providing type C units. And it's the same, could be the same battle sometimes when you're administering accessibility code for type A units too. So it's not a new thing. It's an old fight.
Chris?
Yeah, I know the question you're asking there, Todd, and I want to kind of directly hit it so that we're not trying to skirt around it too much. Yes, the term site is defined, and it does talk about a parcel of land. But when you read the commentary, that doesn't mean like a parcel number of land, right? So a parcel of land can be multiple parcel numbers, right? So when we use that term, specifically when we apply requirements for type A and type B units throughout a site. So the word that we're using here, sites, is consistent with what you would find in Chapter 11 for when type A and type B units are required. So it's a good word to use here. But when you ask the question about, is it the same definition that we use in development? My answer would be, it could be, but it also could be a different definition. So I just didn't want to miss that question.
No, I appreciate that. I was trying to get to the enforceable side of it, but that helps me a lot. And then I guess I maybe asked it loosely last time, but you say there's this loophole between what I would say the development codes and the building codes, and then is any urban planner going to flip this on us and say we're using the building code to close down something that
our planners asked us to do it here. Is the
okay?
answer
No,
for
I
us.
just I wanted to sure I wasn't aware of this loophole and want to make sure that this isn't taking a good thing and creating a weapon with it, right?
Our
And I'm not
choice was
accusing
to put
Tacoma
it
of
to
doing
the planners.
Yeah.
Well, our choice in our department was to point at our land use planners and make them do it there. They pointed more fingers back at us, and so that's why we're here.
Okay.
And I want to say site type C visible units is in the standard now in the new standard, right? So 1105. So it is in the ANSI. So it's all been worked out pretty good, I think, what I've read.
Thank you for that, Mike.
I just have an observation. First of all, I'll say I fully support this. I really like it, and I want to see it encouraged. where I have some question is with the applicability, occupancies having dwelling units or sleeping units where no accessible units, type A units, or type B units have been provided, it shall apply. And we're targeting 3 or more. In chapter 11, essentially anything with 4 or more has to be either accessible type A or type B within your group R occupancy types. And so I'm not sure where this would actually apply.
Yeah, I got you, Mike. I know exactly what you're asking.
Yeah.
So what we are seeing locally in Tacoma, and what I think our jurisdictions that are part of the growth management areas are going to see a lot of, is 3 triplexes on a site. You don't have a single building with 4 units. You've got 9 units on this site, but you have built it in a way that you don't have to do a thing. And so that may not be the experience that every jurisdiction has, and that's why I think it's great that it's an optional appendix. But that is the experience we have in Tacoma. These are the buildings that are coming to us.
But wouldn't that, when you have more than 4 sleeping or dwelling units?
The structure.
Yeah, so you get a type B. So getting into kind of the minutia of the code, you get type B units. The trigger is 4 units in a building. You get type A units when there's more than 10 units on a site. So there is a difference between type A and B units, but you hardly ever get type B units when you don't already get type A units. You just have to trust me on that. The reason is there's an exception in the code for when you don't need to then provide the type B units, and it's when the unit is a multiple story building. So the only way for you to get type B units at that 4 unit level is to have 4 dwelling units on a single story. But this is dumbing it down, but you rarely get type B units unless you already have type A units. And I'm a plans examiner with the city of Tacoma. I review thousands of units of housing a year, and I have a proposal right now. We have a proposal in right now that, just like Chris said, it's 3 triplexes together with, I think it's like 4 IRC townhouses on one site, and there won't be any type A or B units, and therefore there won't be any level of accessibility at all for the buildings or the site. So getting to the garbage or getting to the parking or any of that kind of stuff, there won't be any accessibility. So this is the way to close that loophole where at least you would have a visitable unit on the site.
Okay, yeah, I mean, again, either way, I'm supportive. I just, when I read it, I see it, dwelling units on a site, not structures on a site. So perhaps I'm just reading that differently. But I also recognize the site impracticability exceptions certainly would apply. But I would think those same things that would trigger a site impracticality, may also be hindrances in a type C. But either way, you answered the question, and that's it was just an observation because it seems like it's a very, very tiny little window of applicability. But I mean, granted, every applicability we can add in that regard is great, but thank you.
I agree with you that it's small applicability. It's not full accessibility, I think, which would be more difficult to impose on jurisdictions. So this is a minimum requirement.
Richard?
Hi, Richard Williams. Actually, Mike, I think you bring up a good point. Lucas and Chris, have you guys looked at the idea? There are site and practicability. I had to try to pronounce that word. Allowances for type A and type B units, but not for type C. Would you run into a situation where we'd be imposing a more restrictive requirement because there are no site impracticability allowances for types of units.
Yeah, my opinion, when you look, they're kind of baked. Site impracticability is kind of baked into the type C unit standards in the ANSI because it doesn't pin you down to accessibility. It doesn't use any of the terms like accessible route, accessible means of egress, or anything like that. And it gives you options for it's only asking to remove the step into the unit and to have a flat approach. Again, I'm kind of dumbing it down, summarizing, but it gives you options. It's not as if you have full accessibility like for a type A or B unit, and you have all of a sudden you have a site arrival point, right? That you have an accessible route from the site arrival point to the accessible entrance. It doesn't have that at all. It asks for a circulation path, and it describes it needing to be flat without a step along the way, but it allows you to connect the type C unit along the circulation path from either the right of way or a driveway or a parking area. So there's already a lot of flexibility kind of baked into the requirement. It need not be a difficult requirement to obtain or even cost anything. It's about choosing the best unit on the site without providing any step and getting there either from the parking area or the driveway or so forth.
Yeah. I think it's always confident that it could be a standalone application, right? Because all I'm saying, I think you know what I'm saying. Just want to make sure that in doing a plan review, you don't get tripped up. Trying to navigate the impractical side of things.
Yeah, and we've also ran that by different groups, our permit advisory task force and people, designers and builders. We've ran it by various groups too, and we're pretty comfortable that we're in good shape there.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Hoyt.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize on that. If any of you guys aren't familiar with type C, it's a small little section in the ANSI. It's not as big a deal. It's not like the A and B stuff that we start doing. So just FYI, it really isn't a problem. I don't know if you have the access to the standard codes, but you can pull up type C. It's basically,
it's a half of a page.
Yeah, it's like half a page. It's basically the type C units are, I can give you the page number if you want them. It's page 159. It's basically, a page and a half, just really, really small requirements. So, I feel bad if people haven't read the type C units to vote on something you're not familiar with. Is there a possibility just to pull it up just to show people what it is? I'd hate to table this because it really isn't that big a deal. The building code tells you how to do it, and that standard tells you exactly, isn't it? I don't know, Dustin, do you have that access to that standard?
I can pull some stuff up. It'll take me a second though.
But I also think we could entertain a motion here if you're ready.
I'm ready.
This is Tim. I'd make that motion.
Okay.
To approve this to full council.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Hoyt. Anyone want to see the standard or you want to move forward?
I should clarify that motion of as modified where we removed optional on the very first section.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'll clarify. So it's been moved and seconded that petition 003 as amended and shown on the screen is recommended for full approval by the council.
Yeah, it's still seconded.
Okay.
That was the case. So.
Thank you, Patrick.
Do you have quorum right now?
Yes, we do, or we should. We don't have the two folks, but Bill Mybush is here late, and so we're just sitting at quorum.
Okay.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? With that, petition 003 is recommended for approval by the full council. Thank you, Lucas. Good discussion.
Thank you.
Both times. Okay, let's keep going. We're now into the IEBC. It's 4:35 if we want to make sure we hear. So whatever the take would like to do, we'd like to jump into the IEBC, make sure if we have people been waiting all day, we start hearing that. But if we need to hear the EV charging agenda item 20, I'm not sure how much time we need to do that. Any desires?
I'm fine for keep going. Most other people.
I would really like to hear 20. I know we're gonna be, if we can hear 20 now, it's gonna help us move through all 4 of the EV charging proposals easier on Thursday, I believe.
Okay, is anyone, especially from the public, here on agenda item like 15 or 16, and then we'd be pushing you? Okay. Is anyone opposed on the tag? Do that. Okay, with that, let's skip to agenda item 20. Petition 123.
Is Kathleen here or she?
I don't think Kathleen nor Ross are available today. They're also hoping,
yeah,
they're hoping to update the life cycle cost analysis on this one. So earlier today, I did receive a request to table this till Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Hoyt. I was gonna say, can we quickly introduce it, right?
Yeah. Oh, you're just gonna introduce it. Okay. I just would like the proponent here to talk on it. That was all. But go ahead.
Okay. I think the intent here, Hoyt, is that because it's in the context of the existing IBC EV charges, we wanted to hear it and then absorb all together.
Well, it looks like this one just points to section 429, which is where the rest of those proposals lie. And so if you're in the IBC, you're looking to go to 429 of the IBC with this proposal. And then I'm not sure what kind of life cycle cost analysis they're gonna provide for this one, but we'll be expecting an update on that portion. I don't think the language here shown in section 4 will be updated with their revisions.
Okay.
So
Anyone like to
Can I
go
ask
ahead?
real quick? To me, this
Of
is a
course.
no-brainer. This would be something that says, yeah, everything's gonna be adopted before. Could we approve that conditional that the other stuff got adopted and it's not gonna make a mistake? The section 429. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Can we just, because it's only, all it's doing is telling go to 429. That's it. Can we make a motion to approve something that's just referencing to a section of the code for that?
I suppose we could, but then we might lose out on the benefit of their updated information.
Well, isn't this one's just kicking it to section 429. There's no, I've read through it. It just, okay. I didn't know there was updated for this one. I thought it was.
Well, I don't anticipate they're going to make changes to section 908.1, but if they did, we wouldn't hear it if we made a motion on it today.
Okay, never mind then. I'm sorry. I jumped the gun then. I'm kind of reading ahead to see what we could do quickly, so.
Roger or Tim?
I'll let Roger go if.
Oh, I was just gonna say with all of the scrutiny we're under on the cost benefit analysis, I would suggest that we wait to take any official action until that gets updated.
Okay, Tim?
I wanted to point out that this is chapter 9 of the IEBC, so this would be for any level 3 tenant improvement. They would then be requiring full compliance with section 429 of the International Building Code, which currently this is a brand new requirement. So I think it should definitely be met with a level of scrutiny or oversight to see what the cost impacts would be for this.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I think that's correct reading. Okay, any other comment? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to table to group with the other EV proposals, petitions.
I'll make a motion to table. This is Tim.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
I'll second that motion. This is Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Any other discussions on the motion to table? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, 1, 2, 3 is table and grouped with the other EV charging petitions. Let's go back to
15.
first IEBC petition 092, agenda item 15.
This one's Josh Mergens. Did he jump off earlier? Let me check.
I kind of think so.
Yes.
Before, remember?
Yes, he was out of here early.
Dustin, I've read through it, and I think that this is one that just came out of our review of the changes to the code and the updated. But I do have questions because in the proposal, he's got 401.2 in both the code and the WAC. And those appear to be correct. So the 2024 IBC is exactly what 401.2 shows there. And I also believe, and I maybe should pull up the WAC on 401.2, but those two both seem to be like we wouldn't need to make any changes to either the WAC or the model code. 401.4 is an addition to the IBC, and the edits shown in 401.4 in green are the proposal to update the WAC. But that's just from my study here, trying to look ahead. So I don't feel able to be an expert and say exactly what the proposal was, but I was pretty sure this came just from our review of our initial review of code changes.
Recollecting back, I feel like we talked a lot about this word effectively being included in the current WAC for 401.4. And then I think that the stuff in green is a little bit additive, but it's there to remove effectively and clarify the language in there. So I guess without Josh here to talk about what's drafted here, I don't have a good clue on some of the reasoning here.
I read through it and looked through it. The one thing, and look at the code, the explanation, basically what he did is he put it in a code language. Okay. Effectively demolish is a very arbitrary word. Okay. So what this actually does is put it in a code word language where it says a portion thereof is demolished or damaged. So basically it's saying effective, what is effectively? Effectively demolished, it's kind of a non-defined term as well. This actually puts it more in a code language and tells you what to do when that existing building gets stuck. To me, this seems like a very easy, I don't know if we need him to talk about it. I was willing to make a motion to approve this to the full council or whatever, because effective demolish, what is that? And he defined it better up in the actual language, and that's what I was an ASC 41 is what I deal with all the time for structural requirements. That's where you get into the structural requirements. If you're not familiar with that, that's where all the structural requirements are. I'm hoping we could do this one. This to me seems like a very easy thing to approve. So
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm speaking for him though.
No, is that your motion? Roger, you want to speak first?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, someone.
No, go ahead. You can make a motion, right?
Oh, I'd make a motion to move this to the full council.
Okay.
I don't know, Todd, if I'm an alternate. I don't think I can second.
Oh,
You
better not. I don't know. John?
Yeah, Well, are we discussing this if it hasn't been seconded?
It's okay. You
Okay.
can still consider a question in a discussion. Yeah.
I got a little bit of question reading that, and reading it several times. So we've changed it from if a portion thereof of the building has been demolished by damage, then everything complies with new construction. Okay. But the second part that he's added is where portions of an existing building are demolished or replaced, you comply with the requirements for alterations. And I'm not certain I understand why, how to apply that. You've got alterations is different. You treat alterations differently than you do new construction. So I'm not certain that the changes are consistent. The idea effectively demolished, I know, from the national debate, was about, if you only got a couple studs left or you got one or two walls left, haven't you effectively demolished the building? And they left it deliberately open because obviously different building officials had different interpretations when this would and they do want to allow that flexibility when you're talking about repairs. So that's the only thing I'm a little confused about how whether those two requirements would conflict.
I'm also confused in the grammar. Go ahead, Hoyt.
Yeah, so the way I read this is we're a portion thereof, and then you get down where portions of the existing building or structures are demolished and replaced, all existing portions of the building or structure shall be subject to requirements of alterations. So the way I was reading this is when you have a portion of an existing building or our building that's there and it's been demolished or replaced, because then you would meet that requirements for alterations. I didn't find that confusing. I guess when John put something up there, I guess there's another way to look at it, but it seemed better than what effectively demolished. I just don't agree with effectively demolished by damage.
Tim, thank you.
I think I'm in favor of more tabling this, but that last provision of alterations that John brings up, traditionally it would say something to the effect of requirements of new construction. So that way it was clear that you'd have to reevaluate the foundation all the way up if you tore off the building that sat on top of it. So I think I'd prefer new construction instead of alteration. But if I know there's a motion on the table now, but after that, I think I'd make a motion to table.
Go ahead, John.
On this one, could it be that the impacted existing, if you've got portion A, B, and C of the building, and B and C are demolished, effectively or otherwise, and you have to tie into section A, would that not be an impacted existing portion that would be subject to alterations? That I feel like that might be the spirit of what they're talking about. I'm not saying we shouldn't reevaluate everything for sections B and C that are now having new buildings or sections of buildings put on top of them. That's just, I'm not sure if that's relevant to what we got going on, but that's kind of my thinking on what the spirit of this is.
Okay, that probably helps some, that explanation. It just, yeah, you've already got the new construction requirement in the first sentence. So, okay, yeah, the question then, what is impacted, right? And then I think that would be, I guess it'd be subject to interpretation then, what gets impacted.
Yeah, but I think that's how we're kind of doing it. Sometimes you tie into an existing building that hasn't any damage to help transfer loads, so you keep dealing with that. You may exiting an existing portion of a building, so making sure the exiting maintains. I mean, to me, this is kind of how I've kind of been enforcing it, kind of how it's written in the green with the green. That's kind of how I thought it was. I never thought they had to. It seems like this is clearer language on what you're required than is effectively demolished. I think this is better than what's already in the code. So
Go ahead, Roger.
I was gonna jokingly say we could say effectively impacted existing. And then I agree with Hoyt. This, anytime you're gonna get into, you're taking part of an existing building and you're replacing a part of it, it's gonna be hard to draw that line, and I think that the way the way Dustin explained it, that actually makes sense. Now, could we edit it a little bit to make that a little bit more clear? Maybe, but I don't know exactly how, so.
Maybe take out impacted existing, take out these two words and replace with remaining. All remaining portions of the building or structure shall be subject to requirements of alterations.
No, because if you don't touch them and they aren't affected by the loads or whatever for some reason, then that says you gotta do something. Yeah. I'm not certain on the fly here how to improve it. So maybe you go ahead and, I know Tim said table and Hoyt said go ahead and forward it. So whatever you guys decide.
No, actually, John, what I was gonna say is go ahead. I mean, there still is the option. This is just sending it into CR 102. There's still the opportunity for public comment and editing according to that public comment. So if somebody can come up with a little bit better way to edit that last sentence to clarify it, that can happen later. But I would think that we could move this along and put it into CR 102.
Is that first portion, should it be singular or plural there? That sentence seems funny to me. Should it say or portion thereof? Is. Strike the S on the first portions.
Yeah, you have plural in one and singular in another. So
If that's correct. Okay, so Hoyt, is your motion still hold as edited?
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, is there a thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Bill.
Okay. Okay, so it's been moved and second to recommend the approval by the full council as amended on the screen. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Go ahead, Tim, if you want to get something in.
So I was just gonna say, I mean, I'm just still in that position of, I think I understand what the intent is, and I think it's not terribly far off from what was explained. And quite honestly, the A, B, C portions of building helped me get there, because in the alteration section of the International Existing Building Code, it says, if you increase the loads by 10% for seismic, or, the other provisions for an alteration. So I get that, but I just don't feel like it's very clear. So I would still like to still see this tabled so that we can work on something that makes it clearer. If I had this much trouble and took Dustin explaining it to me, then I think there'd be a better way to word it.
Okay. Is it the alterations portion of that word? That's the thing that I'm not clear what the definition of that is.
Yeah, I mean, this is a provision to the International Building Code where we're building new, but then it gives what to do in existing, and you have to kind of know in the back of your mind that there is alteration provisions in the International Existing Building Code. Unless this is a change to the International Existing Building Code.
This is a change to that code.
Okay.
WAC 5150 contains also IEBC in there at the end. You see a 480 is the special number we gave to everything in IEBC.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to let you know, basically the way I read it is something's been damaged or replaced, you got to design it for today's code. You don't put it back to the old code loads. The loads that are required, the seismic, the wind, whatever it have to be. That's how I've read that. And I think that's how the existing building code tells you too. You you can't put something, there are some exceptions in certain percentages in certain ways. You don't have to bring the whole building up there, but the portion that has been damaged and stuff needs to meet new code, or that's how I've always applied it.
How about this edit? All existing portions of the building or structure impacted by the new construction or impacted by, fill in the word, shall be subjected to requirements of alteration. And then I think it should be impacted by
It'd be impacted by the repair.
yeah.
Would not repair maybe signal alteration? I mean, I feel like that. I don't know. I don't know if
We
I like
might be
that.
making the argument for Tim here to table this and think about some language.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, I still, I don't see how, I'm fine with that thing. Impacted by repair, I don't think you need that. Just replace all existing portions of the building or structure shall be subject to requirements of alterations. That's fine. You already define it. Portions of buildings are demolished or replaced. All existing portions of the buildings or structures, or I liked impacted, but impacted by the repair should be in there still. Yeah, because you would get the whole building then. You have to keep impacted by repair. I'm fine with that little change. I still think you get to the same portion in the building code. I don't see how, I'm trying to figure out how someone has an argue against it. I can't see it. Portion thereof. I mean, it's pretty clear to me, and I'm in the IEBC all the time, and a lot of stuff in Tacoma. So,
Go ahead, Roger.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, is that to change your motion then, Hoyt? As amended here?
yeah, I make a motion to approve as amended. We don't.
Okay, and then Bill, do you agree with that second? I think it was Bill's second.
Yeah, I had Bill, but Bill, you're still muted if you're saying anything.
Sorry about that. I'm still good with seconding.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, then. Oh, Julius was a way in here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to apply that last sentence. Like, if I have a building that was demolished partially, needs to comply with new construction, and then the remaining portion shall be per alteration. And I'm looking at the alteration section. Like for seismic load, it allows 75% of seismic load for new construction. So I just don't know how the two construction will align together. That's why I kind of feel like it's hard to enforce alteration and new construction in one building with the last sentence. So I just want to point that out, that alteration requirement allows up to 75% of seismic load, while new construction requires 100% seismic load. So, and I don't know how the sentence will allow you to do that.
Yeah, I that's exactly where I was going too. That's why I like the way it originally was written, where you just had to do it as new construction. But if it makes it to get a path to where this could be in there, I'm guessing when you're in the international existing building code, that's what this portion gets you to, right, Julius? Says, okay, you could do the existing building code, but you just got to follow that, whatever the repair section would be. So if you knocked out the shear walls and stuff, you'd have to do an analysis of one side of the building and maybe show that you only brought it up to 75% of what the load is of today. I think you get there that way. I'm the same with you. I like the way it was before, but if this helps get people to approve it, then I would, I'd be willing to move this on, because I think this is how I've been applying it, portion thereof. I mean, we've done that when a car drove in the side of a building. We had to do that. We didn't make the whole building. We made that portion that was demolished and stuff to be repaired. And I think that's what this is saying.
Okay. Well, again, there's still time for a final passage. If we do move this forward and then want to make revisions in the next week or two, we still have time.
Yeah, so I still have my motion that I approve as
Okay.
that's what's shown on the screen.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded and as amended on the screen. Let's vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
This is Tim. It's nay.
Nay. Okay.
This is Steve, nay.
Thank you. So that's 2.
Should we do a roll call real quick, just
real quick, just since we have.
All right. Joe Mayo,
Here,
we're doing yays or nays.
sorry, yay.
Go. Tim Woodard,
Nay.
Lance Dahl's not here. Hoyt Jeter,
Yay.
Bill Mybush,
Aye.
Josh Mergens is not here, sorry. Trent Tinney's not here. Michael Shaw. Michael Shaw here. Not seeing him in here. Brett Conway,
Yay.
Michael Barth,
Yay.
Paul Clark is not here. Andy Lanto's not here. I don't think that we are with quorum right now. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, I think Tim got his request.
Yep. So we'll have to table that one till later.
Okay. So for lack of quorum, then we'll what is that? That's 092. Okay.
Yep.
Is tabled. Okay, and we're at 5 o'clock, so I think we've had enough today. Is everyone okay?
We don't have quorum, so we can't.
We can't do anything anyway, so it's a good call. Okay, thank you everyone for the work today. We'll pick up on Thursday at 1 o'clock. Is that right, Dustin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With that, we are adjourned.
All right. Thanks,
Everyone
everybody.
have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.